In future, stream starts itself. I was going to say, I am the very model of a modern major general. I have information vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the fights historical, from Marathon to Waterloo, in order categorical. And I can tell of matters mathematical. I understand equations, both the simple and quadratical. About binomial theorem I am teeming with a lot of news, with many cheerful facts about the square of the hypotenuse. Whoa, order. Everything's encountered an error. Whoa, error recording. Okay, well, so much for that. I know our mythic history, King Arthur's and Sir Caradoc. I answer hard acrostics, I've a pretty taste for paradox. I quote in Heliogabalus all the crimes of Heliogabalus. In conics I can floor peculiarities parabolous. I can tell undoubted Raphaels from Zerodaus and Zophanies. I know the croaking chorus of the frogs of Aristophanes, and I can hub a fugue of which I've heard the music's dinner for, and whistle all the airs from that infernal nonsense pinafore. All the airs. That I could write a washing bill in Babylonic cuneiform and tell you every detail of Caractacus's uniform, but still in matters vegetable, animal, and mineral, I'm the very model of a modern major general. No, this is not Animaniacs. It's the Pirates of Penzance. The Pirates of Penzance. I've been listening to it every morning. It's great. But yeah, it's really good. The best part's after the song. After the song when he's like, well, I object to pirates as sons-in-laws. And then they say, well, we object to major generals as fathers-in-laws. But we waive that objection. We do not press it. We look over it. I found out later it's Kevin Kline, Dave from the movie Dave, classic actor in the old Pirates of Penzance that I'm listening to now on the iTunes. But here it is. I know we're live. We're starting out with books. This is Still Life with Woodpecker, classic by Tom Robbins, a sort of love story. As you can see from the cover, it takes place entirely within a pack of Camel cigarettes. Let's see. It was the wrong time to speak of marriage to Leigh Cherie. Leigh Cherie had driven a wooden stake through the Valentine, yet on the premise that it would aid preparation for her mission in life, on the premise that if she were ever to resume her studies in environmental sciences, she might not be so easily distracted by vibrations from the half shellfish, half peach that occupied the warm, watery bowl of her lower regions. She made herself available to maturation, if maturation would have her. Put away was her teddy bear. Put away were her Beach Boys records. Put away was her fantasy of a Hawaiian honeymoon with Ralph Nader, her daydream of Ralph and her driving off together in the Hialeah sunset with their seatbelts fastened. Not that she'd changed her mind about how perfect she'd be for him. He worked too hard, smiled too little, and dined as if one indifferent to both flavor and fate. He clearly was a hero in need of rescue by a princess. It was just that romantic fantasies were immature. Leigh Cherie read books on solar radiation. She perused papers on overpopulation. To keep abreast of current events, she watched every news telecast that she could, fleeing the TV room immediately whenever a love story was dramatized. She gave her ears to Mozart and Vivaldi. Tchaikovsky was painful. She fed flies to Prince Charming, and she worked at keeping her person and her room exceedingly clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness was one slogan of maturity to which Leigh Cherie could faithfully subscribe, not stopping to consider that if by the last quarter of the 20th century godliness wasn't next to something more interesting than cleanliness, it might be time to reevaluate our notions of godliness. Little Tom Robbins there. Classic. Bonus, we've got Bukowski from Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame, Selected Poems 1955 to 1973. I think we were going to read. Here we go. Man in the Sun. She reads to me from the New Yorker, which I don't buy. Don't know how they get in here, but it's something about the mafia. One of the heads of the mafia who ate too much and had it too easy, too many fine women patting his walnuts, and he got fat sucking at good cigars and young breasts, and he has these heart attacks. And so one day somebody is driving him in this big car along the road, and he doesn't feel so good, and he asks the boy to stop and let him out, and the boy lays him out along the road in the fine sunshine. And I don't know whether it's in Crete or Sicily or Italy proper, but he's laying there in the sunshine, and before he dies he says, "How beautiful life can be." And then he's gone. Sometimes you've got to kill 4,000 or 5,000 men before you somehow get to believe that the sparrow is immortal, money is piss, and that you have been wasting your time. Ooh, Bukowski, throwing it down. And then I randomly selected this. I didn't want to read this section, but this is the section that Jocko chose. Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Manual by Jocko Willink. Fasting. Newsflash, you don't have to eat. Fasting is a gift. All those times you were at a party or the airport or on a train and they don't have any good, healthy food for you to eat, the answer is simple. Don't eat. Often, not eating, fasting, is beneficial for you. Here are some of the physiological benefits that fasting appears to bring. Improved function of cells, genes, and hormones. Induces loss of body fat. Reduces risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Reduces oxidative stress and inflammation. Induces cell repair processes. Increases brain-derived nootropic factors. Increases levels of endorphins. Induces detoxification process. There are also some physiological benefits that I find very real. First of all, fasting demands that you exercise your will. It is not this easy. In the modern age, we are surrounded by food all day, every day. Your caveman survival instinct, which is afraid of starving, screams at you, "Eat that food. Eat as much as you can. This might be your last chance." Don't fall for that. This isn't the last food you will ever see. In fact, you will see more food in about 10 minutes. You don't need it. You won't die without it. In fact, just the opposite is true. In this age, much of the food around you is actually trying to kill you. Ooh, Jocko Willink. Discipline Equals Freedom, a field manual. He was a Navy SEAL, a big podcaster, Joe Rogan guy. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks so much for joining us. Looks like we're going already. Push that like button. We've got 8 likes, 31 people watching. So a lot of people are not pushing the like button. Come on, let's just push it when we come in the door. Like, how's it going? Push the like button. And let's do it on everyone else's videos too. Let's not just do it here. But let's go ahead and get started today on the Thomas Hunt Show. Today is Monday, March 30th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the Thomas Hunt Show. That makes sense. The price of Bitcoin is up 7.76% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,347. Bloop. With a high of 6,441 and a low of 5,881. Hi-oh. That's $1 for 15,790 Satoshis, very close to the 15,000 barrier. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 1.81% in early trading, with a last of 22,027, a previous close of 21,636. Money printer is always full blast. Checking out the coronavirus deaths globally, worldwide, starting with infected cases. 685 becomes 746,178. So close to 750,000 cases worldwide. Deaths, 35,347. So we're working our way towards 1 million. Stay home, don't spread the virus, assume that you have the virus, and don't spread it. This is not a time to visit your relatives. It's a time to drop food off on their doorsteps. It's not a time to visit anybody, not a time to go to bars and clubs and so on. Apparently, it is a time to completely fool people by posting videos on Twitter. I'm going to talk about this more later, probably when I get to Twitter. But no, I've convinced people that I travel so much that I could randomly post a video now, and people will believe that I am at that place. So it's pretty fun. But no, I'm staying home like you should. And if you do go outside, if you go to the grocery store, if you have a important job that you have to go outside for, wear a mask. Even if you don't have a mask, you can make a mask. You could get a homemade mask. You could wear a t-shirt over your face. Anything to have less microbes in your mouth. And conversely, to have less microbes come out of your mouth. Because if you had it, you could sneeze and spread it, and you don't want to get other people sick, and you don't want to get sick yourself. So wear a mask. American culture is going to change. We're all going to wear masks. Maybe ones with smiley faces or Joker masks or something, but there'll be some kind of popular mask that takes off, and then everyone will be wearing a mask. Wow, Katy Perry wore a mask in public. I want to be like her, right? And I want to like this show. Hey, we got 14 likes. That's tons more than 8. It's almost double. Woo! That's a lot. Checking out coronavirus cases in the United States, previously around 124,000, around 2,200 dead. Here comes the big refresh. 145,369 coronavirus cases in the United States, 2,611 deaths. Good to see we didn't see the death number go up that much, went up about 400. However, the cases number did jump about 20,000 cases. We're getting very close to the 160,000 that we predicted we'd see 3 days ago, meaning that we're continuing to double every 3 days. So 3 days from now, we could see 300,000 infected cases. That would be by about Thursday or Friday. So if we see 300,000 infected Thursday or Friday, that means another 3 days. Next Monday, about a week from now, we could see 600,000 infected in the U.S., and next Friday, we could see 1.2 million infected in the U.S. So stay home. Stay home. This is the virus. Doesn't care about your politics. Doesn't care about your church services. Doesn't care about Easter or soccer games or any of your plans. It's just a virus. It's brand new. It's the first time we've seen it. It's awesome. Our antibodies are like, wow, never seen anything like that before. What do you want me to do? And so we're doing nothing. And it's spreading. So checking out Bitcoin price $600 to CME gap, but 6,600 may be the end for the bulls. Bitcoin diverges from falling equities with a $500 price rise, rising around 77% early on Monday, even as the risk-off mood returned to traditional markets. Coinbase CEO says Bitcoin, and of course, cryptocurrency, I can't believe he said Bitcoin, were built for moments like this. And yes, they were in some ways as a way to get out of the traditional markets and have an alternative, but not in other ways. It's not just going to survive a total market crash. If we go back to the Stone Age, the price of Bitcoin is not going to survive. I mean, we have to have some kind of recovery. We have to have some kind of victory over this virus. It's not virus proof. It's hyperinflation proof. It's really actually designed for a hyperinflation crisis. So if the virus causes so much money printing that there is then hyperinflation, there'd be a whole nother reason for investors and as well as just normal people to buy Bitcoin and transfer their assets into it as a form of savings. It's going to be tough to convince people right now that it's a good form of savings, considering we suffered a 50% drop, I don't know, about a week ago. We did have a 30% recovery or something, but still, that's a wild, wild savings account. So, Bitcoin price to escape the buy zone in 5 months. Oh boy. Bitcoin is a fitting alternative as the Central Bank of Egypt imposes daily limits on cash withdrawals. And we saw this before years ago in, not Malta, but Cyprus. We saw it in Cyprus near Greece, where their bank imposed cash withdrawals and was going to make the people take a haircut, 10% off the top. Now we're seeing it again in Egypt. Let's hope that Egypt has more Bitcoin ATMs than Cyprus did years ago, that they have more Bitcoin meetups and more clubs talking about this so they can spread the word about Bitcoin. Blah, 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 blah. Network of fake Bitcoin QR code generators stole $45,000 in March. Nice. Oh, well, don't trust things. Bitcoin price back to 3.8K. Veteran Analysis, who doesn't seem to have a real name, says. So hold on to your hats. Checking out the news, it's been about 21 hours since we were here together last. Let's see what's been going on in the world today. Here we go. Let's go back to some graphics. Look at that. Price of Bitcoin up. That's pretty nice. Gotta like that. Robert Reich says, remember, it's the richest 1% of Americans who own roughly half the value of all shares of stock. When bankers and corporate executives demand Americans go back to work during this pandemic, it's to protect their profits, not the economy. Bold words from former Labor Secretary Robert Reich. It's an oldie but a goodie. Balaji saying, buy Bitcoin in response to the New Yorker magazine saying, the basic principle of modern monetary theory is seductively simple. Governments don't have to budget like households because, unlike households, they can simply print their own money.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
An infinite amount of cash. That's why you should buy Bitcoin. An infinite amount of cash.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
And Balaji says that it's all building to this. The main event of the 2020s. In this corner, the reigning champ, the helicopter dollar, the ghost of Weimar past, the unlimited government, USD. I don't know what he means by MMT, I guess. Modern monetary theory. That's not very catchy. In the other corner, the challenger, the king of coins, the unprintable object, the hardest money around, BTC. I think this already happened, right, on Bitcoin and Friends. The US dollar fought Bitcoin, and Bitcoin kicked the crap out of him. We should go to the video. We should cut to that. Johnny in the booth, cut to Bitcoin and Friends. David Wallace Wells says, there are many things beyond a governor's control, of course, but as Andrew Cuomo has become America's governor for his approach to this pandemic, New York has become more or less the global coronavirus epicenter. And it's in response to Bill Scher, who says, the quality of Cuomo's press conferences is eclipsing how good Gavin Newsom, governor of California, has been in containing the spread. California currently ranks 30th among states in per capita spread. So it's interesting to see New York might be having less success, but getting more coverage because the mayor's doing such a good job with his fact-focused, straightforward presentations that never, ever talk about his ratings in comparison to The Bachelor or Monday Night Football. Governor Cuomo would never do that, certainly. In Florida, mega churches are packed with worshipers during the pandemic crisis, and they're not experiencing physical distancing, the new word for social distancing. As it says on TMZ.com, this is the clear and present danger. People continuing to congregate, squeezing into close quarters like sardines. Oh. On the other hand, a lot of churches are offering remote services, virtual reality, videos, telephone services, even drive-through church. You could get drive-through church. I don't know that you'd want to be touched for the old communion or anything anymore. I guess a priest in gloves could bless you. Not sure how great that is. Andrew Roth writes that Moscow has gone on full lockdown. No leaving the house except to the nearest shop or pharmacy. You can take out the trash and walk pets for up to 100 meters from your house. A special pass system is to be developed soon. The unemployed will receive 19,500 rubles, around $250 per month. So it's getting hot over in Russia as well. Representative Thomas Massie, who tried to vote against the stimulus and stall it in the House of Representatives. The stimulus package that just passed is the biggest wealth transfer from the common folks to the super rich, Wall Street and bankers, in the history of mankind, done in the name of a virus with $1,200 checks as the cheese in the trap. This will be obvious in short order. And I agree this stimulus package is not very good. It's mostly a bailout to people who took the bailout money last time and rebought their own stocks. It's an open-ended bailout. We don't get any shares in the companies in exchange for our goodwill of not letting them go out of business. It's not a very good deal for America or the American people. Hey, wait, that's us. We're the American people. Shit. As we need a test and trace, No Opinion Right says, if this medium scenario for deaths come true, it will be more American deaths since all the wars since 1945 combined. Here's Dr. Fauci saying, unfortunately, he stutters. He says between 100 and 200,000 cases, but then he says, excuse me, I mean deaths. We're going to have millions of cases. So let's see if we can get some video. Again, YouTube, you don't care, but this is for fair use. This is news content. This is called commentary. It's very much fair use.
You use numbers like 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. That almost certainly is off the chart. Now, it's not impossible, but very, very unlikely. So it's difficult to present. I mean, looking at what we're seeing now, you know, I would say between 100 and 200,000 cases, but I don't want to be held to that because it's deaths. I mean, we're going to have millions of cases, but I just don't think that we really need to make a projection when it's such a moving target.
Hundreds of thousands dead. All right. Sad news out of Germany. The finance minister of the German state of Hesse, Thomas Schaffer, apparently committed suicide in despair about the scale of the state response required to tackle the coronavirus crisis, initial investigations suggest. Scary stuff out of Germany. People are still furious about this New York Times article about the ventilators. The United States saw and acted to increase the number of ventilators available during the pandemic. They innovated. A company designed a great model according to specifications, but then that company was bought by another company to stop them from making ventilators. It'll make you mad. As the project explains, it was a public-private partnership that caused it to be doomed for death. The other larger ventilator company came in and bought out the small ventilator company that was supposed to both refuel the government's strategic national stockpile and just in general make more ventilators. It's estimated that an additional 70,000 machines would be required in an influenza pandemic even back then in 2007, 2008. Public-private partnership. The worst of both worlds. Shout out to the Bitcoin hat guy. He's got a new hat for the Bitcoin halving. You can purchase it now for only 0.004 BTC. Seems ridiculously cheap. I remember when that was $4. The hat is a New Era snapback. So check that out on Twitter at KnowBitcoin, KNOW. MIT has posted plans for an open source ventilator that can be assembled with $100 in parts. Great stuff from MIT. I knew we could do it. Here we go. Back to the bad news. All right, this is totally out of left field. Once again, as a propagandist, I need to get my propaganda book out. It's around here somewhere, but I have the original Bernays related cousin of Freud propaganda book that creates propaganda. But this is how you make propaganda. You make a big lie. You have somebody at the top say the big lie without any evidence. Then it creates this kind of undercurrent where people say, hey, maybe the big lie is true. Maybe the big lie is true. And we all pass it around. So here's a complete lie. He has no evidence of this, where the president accuses New York, and he's specifically accusing the doctors and the nurses, the people who are on the front line of this and who are going to die and get sick of this. He's accusing them of conspiring to steal masks and equipment, presumably for their own home use, or maybe they're selling them to the mafia or something. It seems like another one of those where when you have dark ideas in your heart and you speak freely, you expose those dark ideas. So what I think he's really saying here is that if I worked in a hospital, I would be stealing that stuff. And I think he's saying that if he worked in a hospital, he would be selling it on the black market, and he would be looking for ways to get boxes of masks for cheap and sell them for more. You can make up your own mind. I'm not sure why he brought this up. I've never seen anything like this in the Cuomo press conferences or in any other government leader at any level accusing doctors and nurses of hoarding masks.
Million cases in the United States, and deaths could exceed 100,000.
And again, it's not response to the question either.
Do you accept that assessment, and has that formed your thinking about extending these guidelines? And you also talked about New York. Were you suggesting there has been inappropriate use of masks or improper conduct with supplies?
No, I want the people in New York to check, Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, that when a hospital that's getting 10,000 masks goes to 300,000 masks during the same period, and that's a rapid period, I would like them to check that, because I hear stories like that all the time. You know, we're delivering millions and millions of different products, and all we do is hear that, can you get some more? But when you hear that, and I heard that from one of the great companies of the world at doing this, it's a client. And they're going from, you heard it, 10,000, 20,000 tops to 300,000. And that's a hospital that's always full. So I think people should check that, because there's something going on. It's not, I don't think it's hoarding. I think it's maybe worse than hoarding, but check it out. Check it out. I don't know. I think that's for other people to figure out. But you don't go from numbers like that. Now, other equipment likewise, because we're delivering a lot of ventilators, and we're building, by the way, we're building and buying, and we have a lot of ventilators that we're going to be sending out.
All right, enough of that. But, I mean, look at the facts there. So he says, I hear stories. He doesn't have a source. And now the repetition. You should check that. You should check that. I think people should check that. I don't think it's hoarding. I think it's much worse. Based upon I hear stories. And this numbers game he's playing. He's like, oh, and in normal times they only needed 10,000 masks, but now they want 300,000 masks, and obviously they're having to throw out masks more because they're more infected, because we have a pandemic, we have an infectious disease loose. Like, as a doctor or a hospital, if the choice is a $3 pair of gloves or they get sick and we lose a doctor for 2 weeks, let the doctor have some more gloves, right? Let the nurse have some more masks, right? That's what any normal person would say. But again, pretty weird stuff. I don't know why he's saying this. Again, it's more of this negative propaganda. He's pretty much moving against New York. He's moving against New York. He's moving against the doctors and nurses of New York in his press conference. I don't know why. He's doing this. Similarly, he said the hospitals were hoarding ventilators. Let's see, is this the same clip?
Some of them don't admit it, but they have. We have sent just so many things to them, and including ventilators. There's a question as to hoarding of ventilators. Some hospitals and independent hospitals, and some.
And again, this is just more of, sometimes when he just talks about his own failures. We really don't have enough ventilators, so he's accusing people of hoarding ventilators. This is a brilliant, it's despicable, it's disgusting. But as far as effective communication, as a propagandist, as one who is willing to do what is necessary to win the message, accusing your enemies of hoarding when you're undersupplying them is classic dictator playbook. We see this all the time. Very 1984. Very strong. Okay, so we already talked, the same clip. Shout out to DJ Booth. Hey, look, he's wearing a mask. I probably need to do that today. He's working on a new revisit of Tallycoin, the fantastic zero-fee, non-custodial fundraising app. It's better than Kickstarter. It's better than GoFundMe. It's better than all that nonsense because it doesn't take any fees. No fees. Tallycoin. Just bring your own Bitcoin address and fundraise for whatever you need. Trump was really out there in the press conference. I don't know if you guys watched it. I said that it was must-see TV. He was angrily addressing reporters after the governors wouldn't call, after he said, I won't call these governors because they're not nice to me, so the people in those states will die, and so on and so forth. Seems really out of control. As Lawrence O'Donnell wrote, what kind of pathological liar lies about his own lies to people who have video recordings of the lies he's lying about and who actually read his previous lies to him word for word as he tries to lie about those lies? It was pretty great. The Neurotimes writes, everyone needs to stop thinking that COVID-19 numbers today are today's numbers. They're not. They reflect transmission between 12 to 18 days ago, onset and course of illness 7 to 14 days ago, hospitalization and testing 7 to 1 days ago. Strictly, the present is the past. One interpretation of Bitcoin's price performance during the COVID-19 crisis is that it wasn't such a safe haven after all. But another is that it wasn't the safe haven for this particular kind of crisis. And that's what we've been saying. It was a total market crash. It was a risk off. Everybody was like, get me safe in cash. And who even knows if cash is safe? Maybe gold. Get me safe in cash. Now, however, someday, when they're printing so much cash that nobody feels safe in cash, that's when people will feel safe in Bitcoin. And that might just be coming up.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
During the Trump press conference, he said that he had Monday Night Football ratings for his press conferences, bragging about the ratings of his press conferences while people died. The BBC in the United Kingdom is saying that it's going to be up to 6 months, do the math, that's September or maybe October, before things are back to normal. Trump says April 30th. So 1 month or 6 months? Do you wish you lived in the UK? Shout out to the trucker, Daryl Woolsey. He's alone on the road with his little dog, and he's keeping on. He's got Clorox wipes on his dash, the Lhasa Apso by his side, and he's rumbling through these times in a diesel-powered cocoon of glass and steel, bringing you the goods so the rest of you can stay put. So really is an interesting thing how truckers, grocery store workers, of course, doctors and nurses are the real heroes in this, not the people bragging about their ratings on TV. That's not a good look. This is a great graphic about COVID virus and just in general how sneezes work, how coughs work. You can see here on the chart, if you're watching the video, aerosols can be sprayed out of your mouth with a cough or a sneeze or even exhalation. And they could go as far as 1.5 meters, maybe less than 2 meters for a cough, and up to 6 meters for a sneeze, maybe even greater than 6 meters or less than 6 meters. You can protect yourself with a mask, even tea cloth, a homemade mask, a surgical mask, or an N95 mask. You'll leak less particles and you'll have less particles come in. It's even got pictures to show you how that works. Wear a mask. The most likely site of initial infection is in your mouth and throat. So the cough and sneeze droplets getting into your mouth and nose, into your throat, that's how you'll get the disease. So wear a mask, don't get the disease. There you go. We talked about the ventilators. People are getting really mad, lots and lots of tweets, lots and lots of anger. They didn't want affordable ventilators on the market. That's why we can't have for-profit healthcare. At the end of the day, it's always going to be about profits over care. You're going to get worse care so they can get better profits. As Gwen Snyder writes, nationalize Medtronic. They murdered us for money. Fucking seize their assets. Use that money to fire up all their factories on ventilator duty. Use their hallways for hospital beds. Grab every artificially expensive ventilator they have in inventory and send it to the fucking hospital for free. They did this. Nationalize Medtronic. Put their fucking CEO and board and every major investor on an emergency room intake duty for the duration of the pandemic. Gwen says she cannot describe the rage that she's feeling right now. 13 years ago, the federal government said, oh shit, if we get hit by a flu pandemic, we're going to be way up shit creek. We have a shortage on ventilators, and they're super expensive and bulky. They said, hey, maybe we could contract out, make some easy-to-use, affordable ones. If we could make them for $3,000 a pop, we could get 40,000 of those ready to rock and roll when the time comes. A little company in Newport was like, we could do that. All we do is make ventilators. This whole thing's in our wheelhouse. Plus, with government funding, we could sell them on the open market, which the government was psyched about. Old school ventilators were like $10,000 and super unintuitive. A bunch of hospitals would buy these up, then we'd have even more ventilators. But then, this big dog medical manufacturer named Covidian. Oh, nice. She shits not. That's their real name. Strolls in and buys Newport. Up to this point, everyone's ready to go. Then, Newport can't do it anymore. Covidian starts dragging its feet. The former head of Newport's been assigned to a different project. Covidian says, oh, it needs more money. The government gives them more money. Covidian says, hey, could we make these units more expensive? They say, oh, fine. Stop holding our ventilators hostage. Covidian's reassigning managers and executives, making other folks work the ventilator project, get mad and quitting. Finally, it's 2014. Covidian starts manufacturing things. Yeah, mute yourself. They say, Uncle Sam, can we cancel? And the government said yes. They had to start the whole thing over again with a new company. If it weren't for Covidian, we'd have a big federal ventilator stockpile and a ton of cheap and easy-to-use ventilators floating around our hospital. Why did Covidian do it? Why did they sabotage the creation of our desperately needed fleet of ventilators and the ventilators that our COVID-infected parents and wives and brothers and kids and neighbors will start to die for lack of in the coming weeks? For legal reasons, we don't know officially why they did it. There's no let's kill people for profit smoking gun memo yet. The general consensus is that everyone thinks it's pretty fucking obvious. The reason they didn't want to do it is because those bulky, expensive, and hard-to-use ventilators, Covidien was making a pretty penny retailing them. They didn't want their profit margin undercut by the creation of a new, inexpensive, easy-to-use model. Government officials and executives at rival ventilator companies said they suspected that Covidien had been acquired. They had acquired Newport to prevent it from building a cheaper product that would undermine Covidien's profits from its existing ventilator business. In other words, Covidien bought Newport installed because they didn't want those new ventilators to exist, period. They wanted to keep making cash, hand over fist, selling the expensive, old, and shitty ventilators. They bought Newport to get the federal pandemic ventilator contract into their grimy little hands and allegedly dragged their feet, pretending like they were going to fill the contract so they could keep the life-saving contract from getting filled. They fucking murdered us for money. They fucking murdered us for money. Then they tried to wipe their hands clean by merging with Medtronic, a pretty much the same size medical device company, to make a new Medtronic. Together, they became the single largest medical device manufacturer in the world. The Covidien didn't disappear in any way except in name. The Covidien guys are still there playing, woo, oopsie, I don't remember about Project Aura, that life-saving federal ventilator contract they sabotaged. A Medtronic spokesman later said that Mr. White was under the impression the contract had been winding down before Covidien bought Newport. Oh. So I agree with Gwen Sider. Fuck them. Medtronic is literally operating under Covidien's slimy little tax shelter identity. It doesn't matter what they call themselves. They are going to be held responsible for murder on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. They need to be held accountable. Now, if there were any justice in this world, the government would leverage the Defense Production Act and seize every goddamn factory and ventilator and other Medtronic asset right down to the goddamn last catheter. This is murder. They murdered us. We should be seizing and leveraging their assets towards the amelioration of this crisis in any way fucking possible. It's legal and it's justice. Nationalize Medtronic. They deserve far, far worse. The end. Fuck you for pay healthcare. So there it is. That's why we don't have any ventilators. Great job, private industry. Hey, check it out. We're joined by Dan. How's it going, Dan?
Hello, for reporting live from London, or near London, but with a virtual background.
Aha. Let's see. We're trying to get your video on the air. There you are. Wow, that looks just like London.
That's pretty good, isn't it? It's big picture.
I hear these Zoom backgrounds are just all the rage now because everyone's communicating from home. Everyone has you can't go outside. All the kids, they're doing these happy hours, and it's so funny.
Have you played House Party yet? Like that's the big thing.
What's House Party? Tell me about it.
Like, you have like everyone hooks up, in a room, and you get all these squares where people are, and you're all live interacting and just chatting and playing like quiz games and stuff like that. It's pretty good.
Sounds fun. Might have to give it a try.
Playing it with the family tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, interesting. They've got a really lame version of like Cards Against Humanity though, which is it hasn't got anything that's even remotely offensive. In fact, it's almost offensively lame. Like, so I really would advise not playing it because you'll be sorely disappointed. But apart from that, some of the other stuff's pretty good. Quizzes.
Nice. Keeping busy.
So how's the apocalypse around you, Thomas?
Oh, we're hiding out, man. We're staying inside. It's I don't want to celebrate too early because it's not quite April yet, but I think I was pretty much inside the entire month of March. Like, I mean, as I look back at my records, I went out once to the grocery store about 2 weeks ago. I went out a couple of times to the vet. Dog wasn't feeling so well. Got to do what I got to do, you know. And that's pretty much it. Looking at the previous month, well, it was almost all the way back when you were here, Dan. But I only went out 2 or 3 times the previous month, and it reads again like a disaster preparation manifesto. It was like Costco, grocery store, grocery store. So I've been out about 4 times really in the last month and a half. And again, I'm settling into it. I'm a book reader. I'm a movie watcher. I don't really have a problem with this. Like it's more of these normal people that are having a problem. These normal people that are not ready. They've not been preparing their whole life to stay inside and read books. But I have. So no, I mean the only problem is all the people dying outside and all the people getting sick outside, and that little feeling in the back of your mind that we could have prepared for it better, that we could have done anything, that our message was so bad, that we drifted so bad, that we made so many mistakes. And it's not just this country. It's not just this leader. There's a lot of countries and a lot of leaders that made mistakes. And just as a species, as humans, we did not knock it out of the park on this one. There was a lot of, and again, you can start anywhere down the line. I mean, let's start for fun with the Chinese response. That one brave doctor warned them, and they censored him and silenced him and arrested him. All right, so that was not a great start. That's, as far as we know, that's the official start of this. Then they just kind of downplayed it. Then they overreacted, which turned out maybe to be the right reaction, but it was too late. You know, it was slower. And the whole time, the West didn't seem to learn from this. They didn't seem to link up from this. And I think we also had failures with the previous crises, SARS and bird flu and H1N1 and Ebola. Basically that just like with terrorism, we were under some kind of false belief that it couldn't happen here, right? And that couldn't happen here belief, you know, led us to not have a mask culture. In fact, we're still going to have to work through it here in the U.S. I saw a great tweet. I'll probably read it eventually. And the guy was saying something like, in the U.S., if you wear a mask, you're probably going to rob a store. Like, it's not a sickness issue. It's a crime issue. And there's even some belief that just letting people walk around wearing masks for fun inspires them to rob stores, inspires them to malicious behavior because they do feel that they've hidden some of their identity. And then it becomes a question of, you know, how big of a mask can you wear? Can you go around with those November 11th anonymous masks, the Guy Fawkes? Can you just rock a Guy Fawkes everywhere? It's a pretty threatening mask. I mean, sure, it's a prop from a major movie, and they made a surprising fortune selling them to the what was it called, Occupy Wall Street crew. But still, no, you can't really wear a mask here. And that's going to have to change.
Change the culture, though. Do you think?
Yeah, we're going to. I mean, it's gonna be one of these over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're gonna watch American culture on masks change. I think that we're going to see a lot of celebrities wearing masks, and they're going to do videos. I want to see already. Just thinking back to The Big Short, I thought The Big Short was such a successful movie, in part because of the narrative style they used when they wanted to explain something like inflation. It's been a while since I've seen it, but if they want to explain a complex monetary task like inflation in the movie The Big Short, they'll have this bikini girl in a bathtub tell you about it. Let's put the bikini girl with a mask on. You know, let's get a buff guy with all the muscles and put a mask on him. You know, let's satisfy everyone, whatever we got to do. You know, get different body shapes and whatever. I don't care. But let's all be wearing masks. Let's get our celebrities wearing masks. Let's get the rock stars wearing masks. And sure, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for me to wear a mask right now because I'm talking to a microphone. But I'll wear a mask on the video if you want, if you think it'd be fun. But it'd be awful audio, and I'm in a box, you know. But
my attitude definitely, it wasn't a case of I don't think it's going to happen over here. I think I probably wrongly assumed that we'd be able to cope with it better than as it was. We'd have more information by the time it spread. But the most interesting thing that I was chatting to my mum about it. She said that the person who Mama said, but she was reading that the person who sort of started everything in England was actually someone who was skiing. It was an English dude skiing in Austria, and he caught it. From tracing it back, he caught it in Austria. So when you think about the fact that the UK started off from one specific person, I'm sure it was seeded after, but he wasn't even in the country at the time. You can only think about how far the virus actually spread. And I think my kind of opinion, it's a bit more kind of wary now, but initially it was more like, well, I think it's probably more like we don't know how many people have got it and actually passed because of the testing. So therefore there could be like 1 million people that have had it and only 1,000 passed away. It could be 1,000 per million rather than what the figure they know now. So I'm starting to obviously get a bit more wary because everyone's crapping themselves in terms of NHS staff and stuff because of the stress they're under, the pressure. So yeah, only hope the situation gets better. But it's definitely here, and it's definitely there where you are. Well, in your country, Tom. So
it's also starting to affect me on supplies. I had a moment this morning. It was pretty interesting. I felt like 1984. There's a scene, and not in a creepy way. There's a lot of other scenes in that book that are really good, but there's a scene where Winston is shaving, and he's talking about the conditions of shaving during the totalitarian government, and his razors are getting dull, but he's going to keep using them. He thinks he can get a couple more uses out of them. He's rationing his razor blades, and this is something we don't have to think about, or at least didn't in the U.S. There's always another bag of chips. There's always another rack of meat. Like, you just go to the store and it's full of plenty. And I had I was getting my deodorant out, and it got down to the bottom, and I noticed that the way they designed the little it's a gel roll-on deodorant thing, and the way they designed the little thing has these little squares in it, and each square is full of deodorant that's wasted every time you get to the bottom. And normally I'm like, oh, I don't care, I'll just waste it. But of course this time this time showing in the microphone, whatever. Okay, so this time you have to squeeze it out. You have to try to get the most out of the deodorant you can so it can go to the next level so you don't waste it because we're running out of everything, and that was just similar to 1984. So I felt the reality of rationing already, and I think a lot more people are going to feel it.
Yeah, they've got, I was told to put down the milk. They were like, can you put down the milk, sir? I was like, what? And then I had two lots of 4 pints, and that wasn't allowed. So it was like one item per. So I had to drop the milk. Fortunately, it didn't get any more. It didn't go any further than that. But it's definitely. It's not like we need rations, but there's. I had to go to a few places to get baby milk the other day, for example. Baby powder, and so some things are running low, but I think it's quite well stocked. And if you think about the fact that from a food perspective, if all the restaurants and like bars and stuff are closed, you've got there a mass amount of food that's now not in the restaurants, which can be redistributed, for example. So, I think that's kind of one shining light that I don't think we'll need to go on like hardcore rations but anything's better than, like, I was thinking about this. You look at the bomb shelters. So like our form of quarantine now is probably the equivalent of the bomb shelters during the Blitzkrieg, whatever, where the London bombings, where the other one, the World War London bombings.
They called it the Blitz.
The Blitz. That's it, not the Blitzkrieg. I was thinking of the Blitzkrieg Bop, by the Ramones. But they were sat there like they're in like tunnels, shit exploding above, all crazy stuff going on. And like we get to sit in our house with like internet and stuff. So we've got to like, be relishing that it could be a lot worse than it is now. So, I mean, it still could get that way, but fingers crossed.
Well, definitely. You didn't even get to choose who you'd sit next to into the tunnel. They just ration you down. You'd follow in a line, and you'd just sit presumably on the concrete with nothing. I don't think they had anything down there. It was the underground tunnels, right? So normally they used them for subways and trains and things like that. So maybe a bench if you're lucky, probably for the elderly. But yeah, and then they did things like they took the kids out of town. The kids were all in the country, living with their cousins and so on and so forth in the farms. And so you wouldn't be with your parents. You wouldn't know if they've been bombed. They were probably working in a factory, continuing the war effort, right? So it really is like a wartime out there, right?
So what are your thoughts on the use of the power to produce stuff? Did I miss you talking about that at the beginning?
On a rationing or
sorry. What? Trump using his like ding dong power to be like, yo, you got to do this. So has he pulled many? I haven't updated for the last 24 hours.
Well, it's very difficult to actually see what he's actually doing. We finally know that he's activated the Defense Production Act, which allows him to orchestrate the economy. But activating the act is only the first step. He says he's appointed a person to run it. That's great. They say that they want General Motors to make ventilators. It's probably going to take a month till we really see any action on ventilators coming out of that factory. But all of this is good. I'm in favor of all of this. This is positive action by the president. Once again, not to be critical, but we're not sure that he's using it to the full extent. This act could be cranked into overdrive. All right, this act could be really used, or it could be casually used. I would say so far it looks like casual usage. It does seem, I do think they're taking it seriously. I think they're aware of it and so forth. But the part that's gotten really disappointing is that, in South Korea, which got the virus at the same time as the United States, they have hardly any deaths at all. They've controlled it. They have masks and tests, right? Here in America, where they said it wouldn't be a big problem, and he said that it would blow over and that we'll probably have less than 5 or 0 cases in a month, and he said we'll be back by Easter. They're now, and again, we'll probably play clips of this from the press conference, they're now bragging that only 100,000 to 200,000 are going to die. So this is a very difficult brag to take from someone who said there'd be 0 or who said they'd blow over, and whose actual actions during those 4 to 6 weeks, the 4 to 6 weeks of inaction, which however you want to look at it, that's the period of history we're going to be studying in the future, the 4 to 6 weeks of inaction. We're going to get all the emails, we're going to get all the text messages, and we're going to know exactly what everybody was saying to everybody else during the 4 to 6 weeks. So we're going to know. We're going to know who wanted to do something, and we're going to know who wanted to do nothing. And we're going to have to decide later on if there is any government or any history or any future. We're going to have to go back and decide, just not even punishment, but the most important thing to me is to learn from this and to do better next time. And that it seems like we had a good apparatus. There's a lot of administration that comes with the presidency that just exists separate. The National Security Council apparently had a 69-page manual, document on the shelf, pandemic awareness. You pull that out, you open it up, and you do what it says. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the president was required to follow the pandemic manual. So it seems like in the future, you might have to have a rule that says the president must follow the pandemic manual, or the president will be held legally and personally accountable for all of the deaths, right? Because it seems like that there wasn't a rule. There was just this assumption that you would pull out the manual and do what the manual says because you want there to be less deaths. But that wasn't carried through. So we're going to have to codify in law that you must do this. So we're going to see ventilator stockpiles. We're going to see mask and glove stockpiles. We're going to see, you thought the military was doing this, and maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't release their stockpiles immediately. We're going to see a law that says you have to release your stockpiles immediately if this, and that. We're going to see another law saying that there has to be X number of stockpiles in X number of cities nearby, all this kind of thing. We can solve this. That's the thing. The administrative state, the ability of government of people to work together. And I know half the people in the chat are like, I hate government. But yeah, the roads are fantastic. It's because they pave them. They pave them every other year. They have a strategy. They maintain them. It's a whole system. The world's very complicated. We're a bunch of ants. And when we work together like a government, we can do crazy, incredible things. And if we have negative vision of it and we don't take interest in it, yes, the government's going to be out of control. The more you don't watch it, the worse it gets. But if we watch it closely, if we verify it, if we have interlocking systems, if we have an active and engaged public, we can make the collective actions of everyone together serve everyone together and improve everyone's lives. And throughout history, over and over again, even just bringing us the idea of peace, where I can sit here and discuss this is a ridiculous amount of peace that we have, that, you know, that people with the spears aren't here. Like, I have no spears. Like, I mean, I'm, you know, arrows, spears, you can take care of me, no problem. But we have so much peace created by everyone working together, which is what government is. And yeah, we're going to try to solve this in the future. It's going to be changed. I don't know if people are going to be held responsible for it, but we're definitely going to know. There's definitely going to be creepy emails and text messages. And you're saying, oh, I can't believe they said that. What day was it? Oh, it was this day. And oh, they were still saying that. And we haven't gotten to it in the Twitter yet, but there is a story now. Fox News is afraid that they might be liable. These same emails and text messages, which are the evidence of the future. I know I worked in it. I could see right away. I knew exactly what I was doing, and what they were doing with the things that I was bringing to them from Outlook and from other email programs. So yes, emails and text messages at Fox News may show that they knew about the severity of the pandemic, but they did not report on it so that they would better align with the president's message at the time. It's possible that they spread false information and that they contributed to the deaths of their viewers, and that they may be held responsible for this.
Unless they
knowingly spread it, and their emails and text message show them to be knowingly spreading.
But otherwise, you've got to look at it that almost every country's done something different to the other, whether it's the severity of the controls around movement, whether it's quarantining, whether it's doing in the background, making people wear masks, etc. They've all handled it very differently. So
I think they've all handled it very poorly.
It seems like it's a very subjective thing that with the information that different countries had, will cause different decisions. So unless they're actually caught physically saying, "Oh, this is really bad. Fuck it, we're not going to say anything." Oh, I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, you can say that.
We're in the end times, so I can F-bomb.
There are no more laws. My brother was saying yesterday, he's like, yeah, restaurants can deliver alcohol. Like, there are no more laws here. You can do whatever you want. So, but yeah, when we come back later on and we look at this thing, it's quite possible that they'll be held liable. At the very least, there'll be a massive court case. And guess what happens whenever there's a massive court case? We get to read all their emails and text messages. Hey. So we're going to find out. We'll wait. We'll come back to that. Here's a classic moment from the presidential press conference yesterday. As I said, this is during a coronavirus pandemic press conference. That's what they're there to discuss. That's the topic, right? This guy is the guy in charge of the whole response, in charge of the whole government, if you can believe that. And in the middle of the press conference, he wants to talk about his ratings for the press conference. What's amazing about this right here in this video we're going to watch, Fox News cuts away from the president embarrassingly talking about his ratings. This is why I want you guys to try to understand that it's time to be embarrassed and it's time to change your tone. And I know you love this guy and it was great and everything, but even the news agency that works for you is cutting away from him because he's such an embarrassment, right? This is not I'm not cutting away from him. This is like the Oscar speech where they cut him off. So let's go. Here we go. Let's see some Twitter videos. Just a work of art every time. But let's see. Come on, Twitter video. Okay, we're going to do the refresh thing. I don't like it. Here we go. Big money Twitter video.
Your ratings than The Bachelor, or as the New York Times said, we have Monday Night Football type.
The president talking about battling the coronavirus in a Rose
Garden ceremony.
That's
embarrassing.
He's still,
dude. The president's still talking, guy. You're just talking over the president. What? Let's see that again.
Or as the New York Times
The
said, we have
Bachelor,
Monday
Night Football.
The president talking about battling the coronavirus in a Rose Garden
Actually,
ceremony
no,
for
he was
America.
talking about his ratings. Let's try one more
in The
time.
Bachelor, or as the New York Times said, we have Monday Night Football type.
The president talking about battling the coronavirus in a Rose Garden ceremony for Americans who have.
The president bragging about his ratings at the coronavirus press conference. It's almost like hundreds of thousands of people had to die so he could become more popular. I wonder why. Let's cut away. He's embarrassingly talking about his ratings again. And it was funny because yesterday people were all mad because Trump was talking about this on Twitter. And we're like, it's just another one of those presidential tweets. You know, it's just written, hard evidence of the president's thoughts. And I think I'm too loud today. But, well, you're too quiet. So I'll turn it down a little, but we'll see. But, yeah, it wasn't just a tweet.
Really
he went on and said it. I mean,
Surely
I know.
you-
It's
you-
like people are dying. It's like, I mean, killing people,
Well, I
having
love
them
people
die
die.
from this virus has really improved our ratings. I mean, I wish we were, imagine if we were here. I mean, we're saying the opposite here. YouTube's actually demonetizing every video with the word coronavirus in it, either spoken or in the tags or in the words. So, no, we haven't made a dime in weeks here. But this guy, he's getting more ratings from more dead people.
But so what?
figured it
I'd
out.
be interested to find out, Tom. What's your threshold for? Because there obviously is going to be economic turmoil. It's going to be crazy. I think I know already speaking to friends that are in situations where they're not going to be able to get money even from the grants and stuff, and they're worried. So there's probably a lot of other people, and that's going to cause job loss. Obviously unemployment's already, I think in the US has gone through the roof. Probably going to happen the same in the around the world. So what's the like threshold of having to go, right, okay, the risk to the economy, because it's not saying the risk to money or the risk to my money, it's the risk that the
It doesn't
risks
matter.
around the economy
It doesn't
collapsing and
matter.
people dying
Like
because of that.
here's the truth. Fauci gave a news conference a few weeks ago where he said, the virus sets the timeline. It doesn't matter. Like, there's no way to get people to go back to work if there's hundreds of thousands of dead in the street. Like, there's just no way. And there's no way to get people to go back to shop either. We don't have a forced economy. We can't just say the economy will produce 5,000 pairs of shoes and you will be happy. No, we don't have a command economy. Our economy is two
being
halves.
limited right now, though. So if people don't have the choice to go back, and because we don't have the anti.
Well, but I mean, it's not that people. No person anywhere is in charge of this. No person in any government, no citizen of any world is leading this thing. The virus leads this thing. So yes, if you contract the virus like they did in China or in Hong Kong or one of these small situations, Singapore, yes, they're trying to reopen, but people from outside are coming in and reinfecting them. This is the same across the whole world. So if the USA said, hey, let's open back up, people would come and infect them, and then you'd have to close down again. So you can't really properly open up until you've beaten the virus. The real thing of this that no one's been talking about is that we're going to be inside till there's a vaccine.
Well,
nobody's telling you the truth. It's going to be a year to a year and a half inside. This is our new life till there's a vaccine.
There's isolated cases though of it hitting twice, right? There's, as far as I'm aware, there's.
Well, but without a vaccine, you're not protecting the new people from getting it. So the question is, has everyone in the world gotten it? No. Like, if everyone in the world had gotten it and everyone in the world had recovered, then we could move on. That's one scenario.
85% of people, they did a test, airdropped a test, 85% of people have got the antibodies, they've had it.
I mean,
Does the whole country stay shut down for 15%?
That's, again, a hypothetical. So hypothetical, it still doesn't matter. Like, you have to eliminate the virus. So you have to, basically, we just need a vaccine. Like, no one wants to really look at this. Like, we're on Spaceship Earth, right? We pretended that we were capitalist, and we pretended we had a market, and we pretended that that was important and that it was in charge, right? Market's not in charge anymore. Virus is in charge, right? Spaceship Earth has an interconnected system. All the planet, all the countries on the planet, all the governments, all the companies, all the oceans, all the air It's all interconnected, right? Our spaceship is one spaceship. So going to another spaceship, not an option right now, right? We have a couple people in space, not that many. We have millions, billions of people down here, right?
Oh, I'll be
So
going in space.
we have to
somewhere.
solve the whole problem on Spaceship Earth before we can reactivate our market and our capitalism and all of our other things that were clouding us from reality, right? We had all these beautiful clouds that would distract us. And like you could watch a basketball game for 2 hours, maybe 3, right? You could just watch commentary on sports about statistics all day long. And you could pretend that you lived in a sports world. And I live in a market world. And I live in libertarian world. And you could live in all these little pretend worlds. And you could pretend that they weren't connected to all the other worlds. And that you weren't connected to all the other people in all the other worlds. And now it's broken. You could even pretend there was a while, not too long ago, where you could pretend that as a rich person, you were separate from other people, that your massive house and your grounds and your gardens and your gardeners and your, maids and your servants, you don't even have to go to the store. You don't even know. I mean, George Bush, the first President Bush, at one point, and again, it's not a great story about him, but at one point he was so isolated from reality, being vice president for 8 years, being president for 4, he hadn't been to the store and seen those little conveyor belt things and the scanners. And so he went to the store and he saw them and he was like, wow, those are amazing. And everyone else is like, we've had those for 10 years. What's wrong with you? So you could isolate yourself. But now the problem is your maid goes shopping at the store and the clerk at the grocery store is paid less than minimum wage, doesn't get sick time, doesn't get vacation time, and can't stay home when they're sick. So they're sick now, and they're going to work every day, and they're coughing on your groceries, and your maid brings it back to your mansion and your fortress, and she unwraps it, and she cleans it, she washes it, but the virus is stronger, right? The virus sneaks in there somehow. It's on a piece of cardboard or something. It gets into your house, and even you, the rich person with the mansion and the cars and the babes and the lifestyle and the grass and the golf courses and the hotels and all the things that you could protect yourself, all these fortresses, all this work, 50 years you've been making all this money to protect yourself. And now, because of a grocery clerk that can't get a day off to be sick, you're going to fucking die. So yeah, that's the new reality. The virus is in charge, and if it's not this virus, it's the next virus. We never had, again, we grew this big crop of humanity, right? We stocked them in. We were so happy with ourselves. We had so many more consumers. We were going to have China and India join us in consumerism. We were going to get them cars, right? We were going to get them, a car and a pizza in a box, 2.5 children and a television and the Chinese American dream of a house or apartment or something and a bunch of smog. And, it was going to be amazing. We were going to have an unlimited amount of people on this planet. There was going to be no downsides at all.
The Fed was just going to keep printing more people.
There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Infinite amount of cash, infinite amount of people, infinite amount of profits.
You see today with the infinite and unlimited and all this hyperbolous, or what's the specific word for that? Like infinite. Anyway, so Hungary have now declared that they've pulled some sort of strings, and now they have unlimited power. The government has unlimited power. So we have unlimited power and we have unlimited infinite money. Now the gods are definitely raining in on us fast. I mean, what do we do? And when I don't have anything that's unlimited, it's pretty depressed. I want unlimited something.
We've definitely been keeping an eye on Hungary. Had a fantastic time visiting Budapest a couple of times last year and maybe 2 years ago. And it's very sad to see them fall to this dictatorship. It's very predictable. Hungary had a leader much like Trump who was inflaming anti-immigrant passions. People in Hungary were afraid of the other. They were afraid of the outsiders. And I'd heard that outside of the city of Budapest, in the more rural areas, there was a lot of anti-them, that they were going to come and take it from you. So their government had become, once again, repressive. A sad story. Hungary had an incredibly hard time after the Nazis ruled Hungary. They had a very hard time there. They had another very hard time after the Soviets ruled Hungary. So they had multiple foreign dictators rolling through, crushing their people, and now they have a local dictator. So very sad story in Hungary, yes.
Indeed. The the worldometers is looking pretty grim. I mean, it's flying up numbers. I can't help but like morbidly keep checking just to see if we've kind of started to not flatten that curve, but to drop a bit. But and yeah, there's some pretty hardcore growth, man.
We've
I'm
got
really
quite
interested about these countries that like have reported low numbers, but they've got like a high population density. Like, you know, for example, one close to my heart, my lot of my family out there, Malta's like in the top 5 population densities, yet they've only had 156 cases, actually no deaths so far. And I actually read a few articles a short while ago about how population density may have something to do with it. So yeah, hopefully it's in these other countries they've already gone into lockdown so quick that it hasn't spread as much. Or alternatively, because I'm ever the optimist, I'm hoping that most of us have got it or had it, and then we'll actually realize post COVID nightmare that it was actually probably quite a small percentage when you take the whole population.
Well, population density certainly has a lot to do with it. And I agree with some of the people in the chat where we're going to have to reevaluate real estate. Everything's going to change as a part of this. And previously, people were dying. Well, that's a bad expression now, but people were desperate to get a shot at living in a city like New York or London or San Francisco. These small, compacted anthills of people were very, very desirable and expensive. But if you think about it now, what do people really want? They want that fantasy that the rich man had. They want that mansion that's all cut off from everyone else. Maybe they want a farm. Maybe they want to live out in rural America somewhere where nobody else lives, where nobody else can get you the virus. Because a lot of what's happened with this virus is the other way to look at it is that all these people were bouncing all over the world, jet setting and being rich and having fun and doing business. And they helped spread it, right? They're the ones that spread it. The people who stayed home that aren't involved in this international business weren't the ones who spread it. So we're going to see pretty big changes in culture. We're going to see a lot of things happening. And I wouldn't focus so much on the chat because it would get you distracted. Because they just chat all day. They don't call in. But maybe they'll call in later. But we're still working on the news.
Well, if you remind them, so it's at the World Crypto Network on Skype.
You could also call us at 1-518-600-1949. We've been doing calls towards the end of the show, though, so it's tough to tell how long it's been going today. My recorder didn't work. We're recording questionably. Maybe we're recording onto the YouTube. That would work. But we've got a report out of the Netherlands that they're recalling brand new Chinese-made masks to fight the coronavirus over poor quality. Spain and the Czech Republic, which also imported Chinese medical supplies, say they are defective. So once again, this could be a big problem. Certainly, China has the ability to produce good products, but they also have the ability to produce bad products. It may become a major issue if one believed they were producing bad products on purpose. So, well, no, it's a pretty big. I would consider it an act of war. If you're giving someone medical gear and it's purposely faulty because you're not monitoring the lines or you're not using proper equipment or you're not using proper inputs, and again, I don't know. I mean, I don't like the looks of that. So watch out for those brand new Chinese-made masks. They are in a position to dominate this market. They're in a position to make a lot of money, but only if they sell real products. If they go the other way and they mass produce bad products.
Yeah. But this is the third or fourth time it has happened. I think there's two the other day that I read was that I think it was ventilators that got sent to Spain were faulty, that only 30% effective, and other equipment that got sold to Czech Republic, which is also 80% faulty. So yeah, it kind of, you've got to have a bit of a conspiracy theory head on, I think, to kind of make a leap of faith in that, or make a leap with those judgments. But I think the general handling, especially the influence over the WHO, and the fact that the WHO kind of seemingly held back, holding off, letting everyone know how bad the situation was. You combine that with the obvious, they definitely have purposely held back information, or and that's that side of things. And there's so many crazy reports, validated reports of difference in numbers. The fact that there's something like 55,000 urns ordered, or whatever it is, for Wuhan. So you add all of those bits together, and you do kind of come to some kind of confused dilemma as to whether they may be kind of acting a bit nefariously. But I'd like to think it's just a screw up because everyone's paddling under the boat. But it does make the mind wander. Got to tread very carefully, just in case Chinese police turn up to my house, the CCP, and they're like, "What did you say on YouTube?" I'm like, no, please, leave me alone.
Well, we're not there yet. But check this out. Jerry Falwell, president of Liberty University, reopened the school's campus last week. By Friday, nearly a dozen Liberty students were sick with symptoms that suggest COVID-19. So this is pretty much what happens when you reopen too early and when you doubt science. Liberty University, famously set up by the televangelist Jerry Falwell, is a religious university that doubts science. So they reopened. Now a dozen students are sick. If they continue to stay open, we'll see how well the virus can really spread. We've already heard early results from places such as Rikers Prison in New York, similar to a college where the prisoners stay close to each other in both living and other quarters. Over 75% of the prison has the virus. So the virus is incredibly effective. So if we imagine that we reopen the United States, we could expect similar virus numbers that it would spread.
So is Rikers Prison being counted? It's not being counted as a separate entity because it's on an island, is it? Kind of like the Diamond Princess was.
No, I think it's part of New York. It's not outside of the country at all. I think all of its numbers would be integrated, but I think on its own percentages, it might have some of the highest percentage of infection rate in the entire world. So if you want to look for a really tight test of what the virus can do, look at that. Also, I heard about a nursing home. There's a nursing home that has more than 113 patients affected. So it's going to rip through nursing homes. And the only way we beat it is by staying home and not opening the country.
Yeah, but do you know what the mortality rate is within Rikers?
Hold on, we got a call.
Come on, back.
Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Thomas, it's Ray from northern Minnesota.
How's it going, Rafe? What's on your mind today?
Man, I've been watching you forever. You got the best show out there, Thomas. I swear. The problem is that our entire population needs to go back to school. My biggest problem with this, I've been watching this ever since it started, and it's all preventable. All these deaths could have been prevented. We spend billions of dollars spying and finding truth, but we don't have the proper way to deal with it. It's horrible.
I agree, and it's not impossible. We talk all the time about how terrorism is a big focus for us, but it's actually a very small source of casualties. If we look at car accidents, heart attacks, or certainly the potential of a pandemic, much greater source of casualties, yet because of kind of the flashy nature of it, the amazing successes of Tuesday, we focus on terrorism instead.
Yeah. If I was the king, I would say you work 3 days a week. That's all we need to do. And you go back to school 1 day a week. You get 3 days off to think about it, because this is ridiculous. When you watch the beginning of Trump and how he started, he had no idea what a pandemic was. He's looking at, he's speaking about vaccines, and he doesn't know what treatments are or anything like that. It's just so stupid. But I just want to say how great your show is. It's so nice to hear some type of intelligence out there. I've been watching Fox News too, and I go on their chat, and it's just, it's sick to see how many people have no clue what's going on, so I always came up with this, years and years ago. I was trying to figure out how our species ever made it this far. I mean, we should have been wiped out, when we got out of the trees. We should have never made it this far. So it must be some mechanical system that we have, that helps us evolve at the right pace. More or less, we're not an intelligent species. It's just that we're just constantly adapting to a changing environment. You see what I'm saying, Thomas?
I agree. I think it's mostly luck, right? And not the good kind of Napoleon luck about, preparation meeting, activity or that kind of thing, the preparation meeting, whatever. But still the Napoleon quote. But no, it was luck. We survived. We got close to nuclear war a bunch of times. We had horrible pandemics that we just barely stopped, like removing the handle from the Black Death so we wouldn't all use the same water fountain. We've had all kinds of things. I mean, they had to, there's a great story. People wouldn't eat tomatoes because tomatoes grew at night. So this guy in Virginia sat on the steps of the courthouse in the middle of town and ate tomatoes all day long and didn't die. And after that, everyone was like, "Oh, I guess we can eat tomatoes." So yeah, I agree. We're not a very intelligent species. Where some of us are, some of us aren't. A lot of other of us, we can aspire to this. We can aspire to greatness. I watched Idiocracy yesterday, or the other day, and it's a documentary of our times. At the end speech of the movie, he says, "There was a time when people reading books weren't thought of as jerks and knowledge was respected." And I was like, that's, this is a postmortem for our time. I don't think anyone reads anymore. No one thinks anymore. What are you reading for, right? The classic Bill Hicks, trucker waitress in the Waffle House. He's like, I usually get, what are you reading? But what are you reading for? And then Bill Hicks was all like, I guess so I don't have to work in a Waffle House giving people coffee at 4 a.m. That's what I'm reading for. But people have forgotten that.
Yeah,
they don't see it that way. So
I think most people just like to ignore reality. Like that's their goal, and they will, you can see right now that nobody wants to believe anything that they just don't want to believe. Maybe I said that wrong. Nobody wants to believe, or you can't, people will only believe what they want to believe. That is it.
Yep.
And they'll have a lot of people, I think it just seems like it's happening a lot more nowadays, but people have a predisposition, and it's so much harder to make people to shift that or maybe think outside the box. And I swear I used to have really cool debates, especially about sort of, religion and science and all sorts. And I don't know, I just think that the debates you have nowadays and that you see is just 10 times more aggressive. And, you have the diehards and you see in everything, these massive sort of, almost like horseshoe politics. But you've got like the extremes of both ends are so hardcore. The extreme, libertarians, the extreme left, the extreme right. And it just seems like because we've got the ability to have our voices seen by so many more people in the world, we're just seeing how crazy the world actually is by hearing all the voices that you wouldn't have normally heard because they would have been normalized and weeded out. So yeah, it's very interesting times we live in.
I definitely
Yeah,
agree with
very
that.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll let you go, Thomas. Get back to your show. I love it.
Oh, well,
really
thanks
do.
so much for the
Okay.
call. And it's nice to hear people say something nice about the show without saying, but afterwards, because we're getting a lot of blowback from the political nature and so on and so forth. And again, everyone has the right to believe whatever they want, but if the guy's incompetent, he's incompetent. If he keeps being incompetent, I'm gonna have to keep saying it. And I just want competence. We're looking for a pragmatist standard here, competence, right?
Definitely, Thomas.
Well, thanks so much
Yeah,
for the call,
definitely.
and give us a call anytime. All right.
Okay, bye.
You safe, right?
Hey. And so, yeah, you can call us now at, let me put the lower third back up. It's at 1-518-600-1949 or at World Crypto Network, all one word, on Skype. If you're international, you can type 001 for the USA. So let's see. We're checking out the stories, going through the news. Bad news on the regional chart. Oh, London's starting to pop out here. Seeing some growth in London. Let's go back to the graphics. Here we go. Here's the graphics. Looks like New York is really popping out right here. If you see on the far left here at the top of this bunch, right near Catalonia. But Catalonia has more of a curve to it. New York, it looks like it's almost getting back towards this deaths double every day line, which would be very bad. Seeing it's kind of halfway in between deaths double every day and deaths double every 2 days. So pretty brutal curve there in New York, as well as they're saying Madrid, Catalonia. So Spain is starting to pass Italy here. And then we're also seeing, if we look further back, the United States is starting to pass Spain. So not good looking at the regional charts.
There was a tweet I saw earlier that Paul Krugman totally stole that image and cropped it so that it took all the credits off of the people behind it and got a bit of a pasting from the dude that did. I'm not sure if he ever apologized, but yeah, it must be feel pretty good for a Nobel winning economics professor to steal your stuff.
Well, I know there's a lot of people passing around graphs and memes and charts where definitely everyone's cherry picking. I saw a great little joke thing, and it was like, I went over here to steal this meme, but I made sure to like it first. So that makes it okay. But yeah, that would be bad to crop off the bottom graphic, even though from a graphic design perspective, it's really easy to do that. I could see how that would happen. But let's see, as it says here, Ian Bremer writes, the tremendous good fortune of living in the West, even during coronavirus, as an Indian doctor writes here, social distancing is a privilege. It means you live in a house large enough to practice it. Hand washing is a privilege too. It means you have access to running water. Hand sanitizers are a privilege. It means you have money to buy them. Lockdowns are a privilege. It means you can afford to be at home. Most of the ways to ward off the corona are accessible only to the affluent. In essence, a disease that was spread by the rich as they flew around the globe will now kill millions of the poor. All of us who are practicing social distancing and have imposed a lockdown on ourselves must appreciate how privileged we are. Many Indians won't be able to do any of this. And again, one of the greatest quotes in history, and it's a sports quote actually, is Wayne Gretzky. And he says, I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going to be. And we, again, are worrying about the previous crisis. We're worrying about New York. We're worrying about New Orleans. We're worrying about these cities that essentially are already fait accompli. Like what's going to happen is going to happen.
Very worried about Trump's ratings.
And we're worried about ratings, and we're worried about re-election. We have a lot of re-election worries here, and popularity.
Now, worried about the Dow.
Television and the Dow. Yeah, the money. We're worried about the money
Dow.
here. But let's just stop for a minute. And nobody's doing this because we don't have any foresight in our society. We don't plan ahead. for shit, right? We're learning that. We used to think we planned ahead, but we only plan ahead for some things. So if we look at this here, it's going to come to India next. It's going to come to South Africa next. I've never been there. I don't know much about India or South Africa. I met a guy from South Africa at a Bitcoin meetup in Vegas. He was cool. So I hope he's okay. But and in general, when I watched the video from the BBC that was in South Africa the other day, just the poverty and the way that this virus is going to tear through that poverty. So if we were to stop today and think about 2 weeks from now and think about a month from now and think about, is there anything we could do to help these people? Like, is there anything we could send them now? I mean, could we send them MREs? Could we send them gloves and masks? After we've cranked up, we're going to put our own air mask on first here, but then maybe we could put our air mask on our little brother in India and our other little brother in South Africa. And God knows what's going to happen in the rest of Africa, the parts we don't even talk about. So yeah, the virus is going to spread. They're not going to have gloves, ventilators. They're not going to be able to isolate. They're not going to be able to socially distance. And if we want to do some, it's not a nice thing to say, but as a scientist or whatever, I mean, herd immunity is going to be tested. We're going to see it in the streets, and it's going to happen to the poor. And again, they don't have, a CEO of Boeing out there representing the poor. They don't have anyone on CNBC telling Kramer about the market value of the poor. Even the idea that we could give these people enough so that they could lock down. Just food, just water, just, supply them. It's not going to be done. Instead, we're going to wait 2 weeks. Instead, we're going to wait a month. And then we're going to see what the stories look like. So,
don't you think, though, that it's impossible to prepare for everything? And I used to moan, my specific moan, I'm really good at this, years of moaning about the trains, especially in winter. They'd be like, or autumn, they'd be like, there are leaves on the track. All the trains are You'd be like, leaves on the track? Are you shit? Leaves on the track? Is it really that bad? Oh, leaves are actually a bad one. The snow on the track. What about Canada? They have trains. They got trains in like all sorts of places that are really, really cold. But because of the fact that it only happens like once or twice a year, it's simply not worth them implementing all of the infrastructure. And it's kind of like that. Do you think it's viewed more as a it's such an isolated case? For example, obviously the previous ones have been pretty.
I think it's mainly just about us versus them, and the idea that we're not connected. Vonnegut told this great story all the time, and this great story, he says, he thinks the Bible was written wrong. The way the Bible's written is that Jesus comes down and he tells everyone that he's God's son, that he's connected, right? Then they string him up. God comes down. He's like, what'd you do? Why'd you string up my son? He was connected, right? So that's a bad lesson. That teaches you not to string up connected people, right? What Vonnegut said is that he thought a better lesson would be if Jesus comes down and he's a big jerk and he drinks everything and he's an asshole and he eats everyone's food and they string him up, right? Because he's a big jerk. And then God comes down and he says, hey, wait a minute. That was my son. Now you're thinking everybody might be God's son. Even that big jerk, even that nice guy. Maybe we should treat everyone nice, right? And that's what it really is. At its core, in the deep recesses of the human heart, we believe that people are, sadly, not really myself, or at least I'm trying not to, but in general, I think people believe people from other countries are different. People from other areas are different. People that look different are different. All these kind of superficial things cause people to believe that we're not all the same. We don't all want good things for our kids and nice things for our parents and, a decent life. So this causes us to say we should save these people over here, but not those people. We can't save all the people. We can't help all the people. But it really comes down to priorities. And I agree a lot with what the last caller was saying, that we do not focus on reality. We really don't. Like, we do anything to not focus on reality. We'll watch reality television shows that are obviously fake, that are scripted and are also contrived, false situations, false realities. We'll do anything. We'll watch basketball and sports and movies and all these distractions. And we've seen all these things, stripped away. They're all gone right now. We might even run out of movies. You know, we might run out of TV shows. Like you might get to the end of Netflix, right? And what would you do then? And you know, you could do that, or you could do something that helps someone, or you could do something that connects you to someone else. And it's the same thing after 9/11. In the United States, they told us to go shopping. I wanted to hear more. Let's have a community. Let's go build a baseball park. Let's go, you know, dig some ditches for our community. Let's work together. Let's have a big community project. Let's build something nice for everyone. But we didn't do that, right? And we could have bombed the world with hospitals. We could have bombed the world with aid. We could have taken all the bomber money and spent it on goodwill, and like the same way with this crisis. So yes, we can't prepare for everyone. We don't have infinite. Well,
There is an infinite amount of cash at the
there
Federal
happens to be an infinite amount of cash, but we have an infinite amount of cash only to protect the stock market, right? We don't have an infinite amount of cash for healthcare or ventilators or gloves. But what I'm saying, and it's pretty easy, is that we do have some foresight and that we do have the ability to think. We have some extra brains around, right? And they could do the organization, they could do the planning. And that, you know, once our factory, General Motors, gets going and we're cranking out these ventilators, and once we nationalize Medtronic and get all those COVID-10 people cranking on that classic ventilator that we tried to make all those years ago, and once we're making all the masks and gloves and we're wearing them on our heads as chicken hats and being all stupid again, maybe we could send some extra masks and gloves to India. Maybe we could send them to South Africa. And maybe we could have a plan to overproduce on purpose so we could send them that stuff. And that's not only good business, it's not only good politics, it's good for the whole world, it's good for everyone else. And
perhaps though, with such a difference in the every country's doing it differently. Everyone's got the different procedure. Would it not be kind of better for this time to accept that people are doing it differently, and to rather than consume all the time criticizing and finding issues with specific words and all of the kind of semantics and the small stuff, and focusing on that, doing something constructive?
Well, but unfortunately, we have a national government here in the United States that's supposed to be directing that productive nature. So without this national government, we have situations like the bidding auction, where 5 different states are now bidding against each other to get protective gear. So it seems pretty obvious that if we had national leadership, we could stop doing that and we could buy all the gear and distribute it. So it seems pretty simple that we're not doing the right things. And I don't think it's a time to be quiet. America is not about being quiet about our national leaders. They had a vote during the Civil War. They had a presidential vote. They changed presidents during wars many times in the past and will do so again. So no, I don't think it's over, the whole democracy, freedom of speech thing. I would think more that we have an opportunity to help other people. We have an opportunity to expand what being a human is. And we have an opportunity to also reflect that we're in this rare middle period where, for example, we're not polluting at the same level we were. The sky in Los Angeles is blue. You can breathe outside. You could swim in the canals of Venice. This is not a normal time, but is it better? Like, is this a better time? Is this something we should work towards? Is this options we can have? Can we have better society? And now again, we're not going to do this. I mean, I'm talking about it because it's positive, and I'm trying to be positive here. We all know what's really going to happen. The cypherpunk future is coming, where we're all isolated in little bubbles. One of the things that they talked about in Snow Crash is that a corporation was just as good as a government. If you work for Kentucky Fried Chicken and Kentucky Fried Chicken pays your health care and they have your room and board and they serve you food because they make chicken, you don't really work for the Fed faction. You're not really in that faction. So once you've split down from the idea of countries to the idea of corporations, all you really need to go is one level down lower to the idea of individuals. Now, all of a sudden, each individual is a country. And that has a lot to do with this virus coming in and out of your space. As an individual country, you now have to protect your space. You have to keep your space virus-free. You have to keep your single inhabitant of your country, your one person that you have responsibility for, in safe places. So this is going to, whether we like it or not, lead to all kinds of controls over who can be at what place. And it's going to start off small. You show your certificate, and then it's going to get a little bigger. You show your card, then you're going to scan your card. Then it's going to be easier to wear a bracelet or something. Scan your bracelet. Maybe the bracelet have big green glowing idiot light. Idiot light bracelet shows that you're clean. You can come into the club. And then at some point, it'll be simpler to store it inside the person so they don't leave the bracelet at home or they don't charge the bracelet. If you don't want that future, organize your governments now. Organize your society now to fight a pandemic. Organize your society to value pandemic protection more than basketball, more than celebrity news, more than gossip. How do you do that? You value your fellow man and woman and everyone else, etc., your people, internationally, Indian people, South African people, American people, Amsterdam, Netherlands people, all these people. You value them all the same and you take care of them. If we don't do that, if we don't do the good thing, right, we head to the bad future, right? And the bad future is all the bad future things that you don't want. So it's really funny because on the good side, people are like, no, don't do that. Don't interconnect. Don't get with the people. But that attitude leads towards the bad side. So we'll just have to see how it goes, which future we end up with. I know already that movie theaters as a business, paying $10 to sit next to someone that might be sick, that's not a business in the future. Concerts as a business, pay $100 to sit next to someone that might be sick, that's not a business. Airplanes in the future, pay $1,000 to sit next to someone that might be sick, that's not a business. So if these aren't businesses, they're going to have to find a way to either make these businesses work or abandon the idea of having human beings in space together. Complete separation. Plastic suits outside all the time. 12 monkeys. So I don't know. I mean, you have to choose your sci-fi future. If you don't prepare for things, if you don't take positive action, if you don't have a positive direction for your society, if you shrug your shoulders, as Ralph Nader said, the lesson of history, if you're not turned on to politics, politics will turn on you. And we have a lot of people that always are telling me, I'm not into politics. I'm into entertainment. I'm not into that. I don't really cover it. I don't really watch it. I don't really pay attention. It's too difficult. It's too real. I don't like talking about that. That's too real. I've already explained to people, this is what I believe. I don't like questioning it. I don't like testing it. It's too hard. Thinking is too hard. I just want to do nothing. I just want to play video games. Leave me alone. It's over now. We're interconnected and we're all part of a thing trying to fight a thing, or we're a bunch of individuals trying to be separate from everyone else. And there's, it's diverging paths, right? Once you've gone down one of these paths a certain way, you may never be able to go back to the other paths. You don't really get to try it out. You don't really get to test it. I mean, you can imagine it, but again, you'd have to use your imagination. You'd have to think, God forbid. You might even have to turn the music down. Hell, you might have to pause this show, think about something in quiet for half an hour, and then maybe turn it back on. That'd be, no American would ever do that. I remember when I started reading about meditation and Buddhism and all these other things, and I was like, you can gain by silence? You can gain by doing nothing? What? It's such an un-American idea, and it's still an un-American idea, even as we're boxed up in our little boxes and stuff. Also, I don't think people are organizing and sorting. I think people are sitting on couch. I think they're sitting on ass.
So they'd be doing the Marie, what's her name?
Kondo. Yeah, Marie Kondo. I think it's
Kondo,
super
yeah,
valuable. I think that it also, to relate it.
And if it makes your gizzards tickle, it's fine. Otherwise,
yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it's pretty fun. I mean, I had a hard time getting rid of books for a long time. I love books, right? I'm always buying books. I'm always shopping for books. I got a book problem. But thanks to Marie Kondo, I was able to look at my books and to hold them in my hands and to say, do I value this book? Does it bring me joy? And it turned out a lot of the unread books I had that I used to want to read, I didn't really want to read them anymore. And having them around was not bringing me joy. It was actually weighing me down with books I didn't want to read. So now, although I do have a bunch of unread books, no doubt, I want to read them all. They all bring me joy. And even the ones that I kept of the read books, I took some where I was like, I love this author. I read all of his books, but this one wasn't the best, right? It's not the best of his books. I don't need to store that anymore. So I think it was really valuable just having books that bring me joy. It reminded me a lot of what I read yesterday from Timothy Leary. And Timothy Leary was talking about tuning in, turning on, and dropping out. And even if we just put aside the drugs and okay, he's an LSD guy. You want to do LSD, that's fine. That's your choice, whatever. We just put that to the side, right? And just say that as a mental person with a smart brain, you can wake up anyway. And what he said is, stop shuffling like a robot. Start floating like a god. And when you look around your room, when you look around your house, don't have any of this stupid robot stuff. Have stuff that vibrates with you. And it's super funny because it's a very small part of Timothy Leary, but he's very clearly predicting Marie Kondo, right? This Japanese organization expert is almost the same as this Harvard dropout LSD guy, right?
So did you many of your vibrating things?
Well, I think that already when I looked around my place, because of the Marie Kondo aspects that I've been able to take in and my goal towards having less stuff, it already looks like a place for a god. It doesn't look like a place that a robot lives. But if I think about to my past and a lot of it is you're in a hurry. You got to get up early for your job. You got to go to bed to get to your job the next day. You don't have time to endlessly sort and organize your shit. But now that you're stuck at home, now that you do have a little bit more time, you want to break it into smaller tasks and you want to organize just a little bit of your shit each day. And if you work on that, it might take a few weeks. It might take a month or two. But once you've organized all your stuff, you'll feel better about it. And some people have too much stuff. Some people have too little. Most people have too much here in America, though. We're very stocked up on stuff. Like the poem said this morning, we're very stocked up on food. You can always get more food. You can always get more stuff. There's going to be more food. It's going to come along. So.
Tom, do you mind if I sit on your lap?
There you go. I'm everywhere. What would you like for Christmas?
That's not the real Maltese Falcon.
Oh, it isn't. No.
You're like 15 versions on now. You let me in your house. There's it's been replicated.
It's very possible this Falcon could be fake. If you're looking for something to do, check out the Humphrey Bogart classic, The Maltese Falcon. It's all about whether or not this bird is secretly a jeweled bird inside. If you cut off the carvings of this, if you broke it free. All right. And you don't get to be on TV anymore. Sad. So, yeah, if you cut off the carvings, you could find a jeweled bird inside of there. A jeweled bird.
Thomas, constructive. Obviously, you've been doing loads of shows recently and been getting some great feedback. Is there anything else that you're doing as like a little side project? Maybe like painting little toy eggs, or you're doing it? Is there anything else you've got your site set on? Anything cool? Anything crypto related?
No, man. I read about the coronavirus every day, and I try not to die, and I try not to have other people die.
That's a struggle.
And that's what I work on. So, no, man. It's not. There's nothing else going on in the world. It's all about coronavirus. That's all there is. So.
Hashtag staying alive.
Yep. And again, I could be in denial and pretend that it wasn't happening and they were still filming my favorite movies and they're still going to release them on schedule and the new iPhone is going to come out on time and all of my economic dreams are going to come true. But the reality is this thing puts a stopper on everything. We want to go back to work. We want to go to church on Easter. Well, maybe not. But if we did, it doesn't matter. The virus hath chosen. So, no, we just focus on the virus, man. I look forward to a day where we could return this show to normal and just talk about Bitcoin and maybe some politics too and some books and all the other things that are fun and positive. But we're not there. We're very much not there. We're still in the middle of this whole thing. It would be great to put it on control and to stop. So,
what's your prediction there? When do you think that everything will be open back up for the US? If you were just like finger in the air.
It doesn't matter, but I think the UK said 6 months. The president said 1 month. But again, it's going to be when the number of cases decrease and when we have the testing under control so that we know that we're actually testing, and where we can just start testing everybody all the time. And we just, right now in the United States, we just don't have testing. We're not testing people who are casually ill. We're only testing people who are very ill. And additionally, we don't know if people are dying from pneumonia or some other similarly related disease. We're not necessarily going out of the way to test them either. So without the testing, we're blind. Until we have the testing, we can't attempt to control it regionally. Although regionally in the U.S. is, questionable. Like, we don't have lockdowns. We don't have walls or borders between states. And it's going to continue. It's going to continue until we get the testing. And what we're really looking for is the vaccine. I talked about this on our very first coronavirus show. There's 2 ways through this. Way number 1, you stay home, you avoid contact, you clean up your food, you do all of these things, you take all these extra steps, you avoid public gatherings, you avoid family, you avoid friends, you go through all of this effort, right? And you come out the other side clean, and you get the vaccine, which is a weakened version of the virus. So you're going to get it eventually anyway. And the vaccine, you get sick for a couple of days, your guys fight it off, you have antibodies, now you can go out in the world again. So everyone in the world gets this vaccine, suddenly people aren't carrying it, suddenly people aren't getting sick. We're all good until the coronavirus mutates. Then we're going to have to go back into lockdowns, we're going to have to control things. Hopefully we'll have the testing that time, so we'll be able to determine who has it in what area. We're going to have the flu separation system like they have in China, where they isolate you. Even if you have a minor case, they especially isolate you from your family and your friends, so we don't have community transmission from coronavirus 19 version 2, right? And we lock back down. We get a new vaccine for coronavirus 19 version 2, and then we can go back outside for another 6 months. This is the new life. This is the new world. And coronavirus is only one of the many viruses that could now spread for a variety of reasons. One of the main ones being, and I don't like to say this because I don't believe it and I think it's bad, but we have too many people and not enough trees.
Jeremy Sayers just said that Illinois has just banned beer and alcohol. That's crazy.
Let's see.
Hashtag
beer and alcohol.
That's crazy. I take it is Illinois there?
Sales.
Over there? Maybe they leave, because dispensaries are going through the queues for dispensaries.
Oh, we'll have to see what that's like. I mean, I don't know about that specific story. I haven't read it. I know that in Vegas they did close the liquor stores, much to the dismay of many people here in town. As far as I know, that only limits your access to liquor. It doesn't completely cut it off. You can still get it at the grocery store here in Nevada. Sorry. As far as why Illinois would do that, I would think they would shut down bars. I'm not sure if banning beer and alcohol sales, I assume that means closing bars, which might be another way of saying it. So yeah, you can't go to a bar and get a bunch of people sick anymore. Sorry. Like, I don't think that, and on the other side, I mean, in San Francisco and California, other cities, closing the bars has actually opened up alcohol delivery and alcohol to go service, because obviously these bars have a lot of, I don't think it's fake. I think it's just, Jeremy says it's fake. I think it's more likely they would close the bars and restaurants. Closing bars and restaurants is similar to banning alcohol purchases, but it's not really the same thing. It's more of a protective move.
You can still go and buy it and then hang out with your friends on a park bench. Oh, did you see? I'm going to say sorry. Segue into something else. Brooklyn, there's like a really cool video. I think it's from yesterday, and there's just like someone blaring out Notorious B.I.G. Juicy, and like everyone, stacks of people in these apartments all all singing along, and that was pretty incredible. It's cool seeing kind of loads of things like that. When the community has got together, when they're trying to keep spirits up, and it does show the good side of things. I know we've got a load of dumbass stuff that happens and malicious people and nasty ass stuff going on, but that's the kind of cool side when you see people doing a mass big-a-thon. I mean, epic.
I also really like that video of Robbie Robertson and Ringo Starr and a bunch of other people playing The Weight.
The Weight.
I sent it to you. It's The Weight. Take a load off, Fanny. Take a load for free. The classic. It's a biblical song. I mean, it's about, it's got some biblical nature in there, but it's just such a great laid back song. They do a great jam. They had a guy from Africa, a lady from Barcelona. It's just a global thing. And especially they did a great job editing it and bringing it together after the fact. Very clearly they had everyone sing the full song. Then they cut it together with versions. I thought that was great. And again, they had all like professional singers, professional musicians. It was very high level. Whereas that previous celebrity video of Imagine looked very badly cut together, very live, and from very many non-professional singers.
Yeah, so you know how many lives that saved? That's so ignorant. How many lives did that save, man? Like, and then I suppose you probably have a problem with the no makeup selfie pictures that were also saving lives that all the celebrities were doing. How dare you? How dare you?
I wish they would just promote masks. I mean, even in these videos, if they would just wear masks, and especially the prettier they are, Scarlett Johansson, whoever it is at the top of the pyramid these days, I'd like to see them out there with a mask, and even just on a public PSAs, and hopefully we'll have this. Hopefully the culture will shift towards mask wearing, and some companies can make some fancy masks. Let's get Jay-Z on this. I read that, or not Jay-Z, Kanye West, Yeezy. Right? I was thinking Yeezy was Jay-Z. Well, now I'm confused. But anyway, Kanye. I want Kanye. I want fashion masks. I want the mask of the 21st century. I read this big, long article about Kanye. I got tricked into it. They said that he had designed the perfect hoodie. And so I was like, oh, perfect hoodie. You've caught my attention. And I was looking for where I could buy it and more descriptions. And originally, Kanye was even saying the perfect hoodie would be sold at Walmart or Costco. And they describe Kanye is just incredibly fascinating. The article was great. I think it was from the Wall Street Journal, actually, of all places. But great article about Kanye and the perfect hoodie. And he talked a lot about like different materials. And he said how he admired Costco because all the clothes were just folded out there. How it was this kind of minimalist clothing, thing that he appreciated and valued that. Seems like a very deep and thoughtful guy. Working on a lot of projects, obviously very religious guy, but just interesting. So I'm very interested in Kanye West. I'd like to see what he would make with the masks, what kind of mask he would make. So
I just, whenever I hear anything about Kanye, I switch back to South Park, and it's like, hold up. You telling me just got big ass hairy feet, and and she carrying a ring, and she live underground. That doesn't make her a hobbit.
That's right.
Bitch, you ain't a hobbit, right?
And he likes fish sticks. Yeah.
Fish sticks. I love fish sticks.
Yeah, he talked about that. Well, it's funny, the South Park guys actually came out recently and they said that they were sorry for making fun of Al Gore and Man Bear Pig. And that they went too far, and that it turned out that Man Bear Pig was real, and they feel bad about it. So I thought that was pretty cool because they do a nice job satirizing both sides of everything most of the time. And sometimes, though, like with Man Bear Pig, you're just wrong and you're not helping. So, but let's try to get through some more news, Dan. Come on. You got to have the strength to go through the full line. We have so much more news. Like, basically, we can't leave until we finish the news. It's part of the rules.
Let's rock.
Let's see. Corporate executives want to sacrifice themselves for stock market gains while they continue working from the safety and comfort of their billion-dollar mansions. Robert Reich says this is the most morally repugnant class warfare that you could imagine. Things are getting serious when they get out the class warfare word. No one likes to use that. That's a big one. So, yeah, it's a pretty bad look trying to sacrifice these people I agree with Joy Reid. She had quoting this interview with the Wells Fargo billionaire and former CEO who said, and this is about the tellers. This is about the smallest people in the line, right? He says, we'll gradually bring back those people and see what happens. Some of them will get sick. Some may even die. I don't know. And I remember I was watching this interview live on CNBC. I just happened to be. And I said they're really fortunate that he's the former CEO of Wells Fargo, not the current CEO of Wells Fargo. So that's a pretty disastrous statement that he would just bring his workforce back and let some of them die. So the Justice Department has officially opened an investigation into potential insider trading by senators who sold stocks after their coronavirus briefings. GOP Senator Richard Burr, who allegedly sold $1.3 million of stock after receiving the briefing. Then he briefed a bunch of rich constituents. Then he went public saying that it was no big problem, has hired an attorney. Tokyo has a spike in virus infections. Previously, we were looking at the Japan numbers, thinking that they were far too low. According to Paul Graham, at Paul G on Twitter, he's heard that the Japanese government was lying about the number of coronavirus cases, perhaps to keep the Olympics on the board, and that once they stopped with the Olympics and they reduced it to next year, they've gone back to telling the truth. So we're having a lot of problems during this crisis with getting actual real numbers. This is something to look into fixing next time, having numbers that we could actually check. Here's Anna Podolanzuk writing from a hospital. She's telling the stories of what's happening here. It sounds like she's a nurse. She says, today she told a 28-year-old that he needs intubation. He was scared, couldn't breathe. She told the wife of a 47-year-old that he is dying over FaceTime. And she branched a COVID-19 patient who was mucus plugged. It saved his life, and she risked hers. So it is happening in the hospitals out there in the world. There's nothing we can do about it. And we had that story yesterday. We were hoping it wasn't true and hoping it was a put-on job or whatever. It really doesn't seem like it's a put-on job at all. Using the excess mortality approach, we find evidence that 2 to 3 many times people are dying of COVID than officially being registered. We really don't have good numbers. We don't have the kind of numbers where we could say this virus is no big deal. We also don't quite yet have the numbers that say the virus is a big deal, but we're going to find out later as soon as we have more testing.
I've seen reports though that there's actually way more deaths being like the complete opposite, and this is why it's such a an annoyance.
I don't think we can test the numbers now. Yeah.
No, well, the fact is that this where certain places are stretched, they're putting certain things down to if it was more pneumonia and something else, they're putting it as specifically COVID. They may not have even tested the bodies; they're just putting it as COVID. If it was straight pneumonia, they might not know. So it's just so funny the range of things that you see. You've got this little indicator here, and you've got people going, "Oh, their estimates are awful. They're way under," and then you've got people going, "Oh, they're way over." And
But what are our options? Our options are we could believe that the deaths are out of control. We could believe the deaths are under control. We could believe in the middle, or we could wait. And we could wait for better numbers. If the numbers are bad, like believing in them full heart, that they're high, or believing them that they're low, it doesn't matter. They're just bad numbers. So I think at a certain point, if you don't have good data, you have to wait for good data. There's nothing you can do with bad data. Like bad data doesn't confirm anything. It doesn't confirm they're high. It doesn't confirm they're low. It just confirms if we can tell. Sometimes we can't even tell till we get the good data. All the bad data shows is that it's bad data. Like it doesn't really give us a answer either way. So I think given the abundance of bad data, we're going to have to wait for good data. I don't think that means that you could just ignore the virus though. So In Tory-led Britain, 80% of workers are receiving their pay and are guaranteed to get their job back once the shutdown is over. In America, the workers are laid off. They must file for unemployment insurance and wait for the economy to start up again. This opinion piece in the New York Times says, it's not too late to start protecting jobs or to make medical care for COVID-19 free. And we are seeing different reactions in other countries. Denmark is preserving all of their workers. I think this is a much better idea. You give people something
Preserving them in carbonite.
Well, preserving their jobs so that they have something to go back for afterwards. Whereas right now in the United States, you're sitting in a box, you're waiting for your $1,200. You know it's not going to be enough money for rent. And you don't have a job. You can't even apply for a job. No one's hiring. Nothing's open. Everything's closed. So it creates all this economic uncertainty and destroys people's lives. Or we could have a system like in these other countries where they're keeping the firms together. You're still on a team of people. Yeah, Jamba Juice may be closed, but you still work there. You're still the assistant manager. And you know someday in the future you're going to go back to work. We haven't done that here. And I think that's going to create more chaos and uncertainty. And if we were planning for next time, we should codify in law that in a crisis like this, jobs have to be preserved because it's a better system. Or maybe this is better. Maybe the chaos system's better. And, we're going to find out. We'll get the results from the chaos system in 3 to 6 months. And we'll get the results from, say, the British system or the Denmark system in 3 to 6 months. We can make our choice for next time. We've got some great news here. BlackRock, the famous asset management firm from Wall Street, is going to be able to use taxpayer money to invest in ETFs that they manage. So they're going to take the money and invest it in themselves. And they are in charge of all of that dirty money that they gave them in a big slush fund to save the economy. So let's hope they don't just purchase ETFs from themselves, making millions of dollars in trading fees, as well as justifying their own ETFs and so on and so forth. So we've got lots of crony capitalism. We've got lots to complain about in the new bill. 75% of the money went to the corporations, 25% went to the people. But again, it's a crisis, so it's better to look the other way and just let Congress pass anything they want. That's the way to go. We said yesterday there wasn't enough video of inside of hospitals and actual crises and sick people. Here we are from CNN. This is exclusive footage from New York City inside a hospital on the front lines of the coronavirus. We can obviously see all the activity, all the space suits, all the plastic. Just looks horrible. Guys cleaning it up. And here's the truck with the bodies outside, the refrigerated body truck. I had a tweet yesterday with the pictures of the bodies inside the truck. So this does seem to be really happening, despite any hopes or belief that it was not. It's really happening. Boris Johnson, interesting article from his bunker. He says that there is no such thing as society. It's pretty horrifying.
Is it a societal construct?
He says,
societal or social construct, as they say.
There's no such thing. Oh, Boris, he's contradicting Thatcher, actually. So Thatcher said there is no such thing as society. Boris, oh no, he's actually, wow. I really don't understand that. That's going to take some time to wrap my head around. Thatcher.
Figure out what he said first, so then you can realize why you're angry about it. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean it seems pretty clear. I mean they're both just using whatever happens to meet their own conclusions. Yeah. They'd already decided that there wasn't a society. So when individualism rose in 1987, Margaret Thatcher could say there's no society. Now, when society has failed, maybe because of handling like Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, they can now say, oh, there's no society, but you failed on purpose. So no, I disagree entirely. I think this is a huge mistake and a disaster for Britain. This is the kind of attitude that led them to say no to participating in the mass ordering of ventilators from the EU because Britain is no longer part of the EU. However, only a person with logic who's ever purchased anything in their life could see how being included in a large purchase order of ventilators would get you a lower price and would allow them to deliver them to you because they have such a large order, guaranteed income for their firm. It seems natural to work with the EU regardless of previous or future problems. The idea that there is no society really means that, dog eat dog, that everyone should just eat each other. I mean, I can't believe that Boris could say this in the face of these next paragraphs as he thanks doctors and nurses. I don't know why these doctors and nurses are risking their lives for our no society, for our lack of connection. This just seems really, really strange. Maybe he's having problems because of the COVID virus. Maybe it's causing some kind of problem in his brain. But yes, there's no such thing as a society. The Prime Minister of England, of the United Kingdom, says from a bunker. So I don't know. Very strange story coming out of England. Dan, is there no such thing as a society? Is Britain over? All the keep calm and carry on, the stiff upper lip of Churchill, the strength during the Blitz, all the people that stayed inside as London was bombed.
Yeah,
they all did that for no society, for nothing.
Look, I think there's obviously, there is society, and I think we're seeing some real, as I said earlier, like some really good spirited communities pulling together.
Update. They're now saying that Boris is saying there is such a thing as society. Thank you, everybody. Thatcher was saying that there is no society. So we're down on Thatcher. We're up on Boris. There is such a thing as society. So that's good. Sorry, guys. I misread it.
One thing that is stupid is and I'm sure Greta would be she'd be very mad about this. She'd say all sorts of some nasty things. But Boris is spending like £5.5 million on letters. Like, really, letters? Like sending out letters? Surely there's something that would be cheaper than £5.5 million. That could go on something slightly more useful.
We got a letter here in the U.S. about the coronavirus. It was a postcard. It looked like the kind of thing that you'd throw out with the rest of your mail. It didn't look like a detailed report or an important communication from the government. You know how you get those advertisements in the mail sometimes, and they wrap it up like it's a very important document, and they stamp, confidential on the outside, and you open it up and it's a magazine sweepstakes. It was kind of like that, but it was your official communication from the government on how you can handle the coronavirus. Back to the news. In 2014, there were 11 cases of Ebola and 2 deaths in the U.S., and Trump demanded that President Obama resign. Today, we have nearly 140,000 cases of the coronavirus and 2,400 deaths in the U.S., and Trump insists he's doing a great job.
But then if you were to compare it to how swine flu, is it swine flu or SARS? The fairness, if we're going to look at numbers, there were quite a few people that sort of passed on more from was it swine flu?
I definitely think with 140,000 infected and 2,400 dead, with projections of 100,000 to 200,000 dead, as opposed to 2 dead. Yeah. Doing a heck.
Definitely.
Doing a heck of a job.
I'm not denying that, but I think there's always loads of comparisons, and I think that you've got to look at all of them instead of just looking at one thing. And so you could say that Obama's handling was horrific with the amount of, there were like in the tens of thousands of deaths with, was it swine flu or one of the other ones? Just playing devil's advocate.
I don't think there's any really room for devil's advocate here. I mean, I think you have to have a position to stand on. You have to have some ground to stand on. Otherwise, you're just making statements that are semantics. They're just, they don't really have the strength of an argument. Like in this comparison here, which is a pretty direct and stark comparison that also includes quotation by the previous president's words, or the president's words here. Trump on Twitter, in his own words, demanded resignation for 2 deaths. So we have a historical act, right? Then on the other side, we go forward, 6 years to the horrible year of 2020, where Trump is claiming that 100,000 to 200,000 dead is a good job. And we have to say that the Trump of 2014 would demand that the Trump of today resign.
Oh, he probably would.
By a factor of 100,000, right? By a factor of 100,000, what the Trump today did is worse than the Obama of 2014. Therefore, if the Trump on Twitter of 2014 had a standard with the Trump of today, he would resign 100,000 times.
Does it not make a difference that Ebola is like nothing compared to this in terms of the impact of deaths?
I think that we can look by the actions of previous administrations, they made it into nothing. I think that because of following in previous cases, and again, we'll have plenty of time to work all this out. I think if we looked at what President Obama did in 2014, I'd imagine that they got the National Security Council Pandemic Awareness Handbook down off the shelf, and that they opened it, and that they followed it. And that by following these things, they made it into nothing. So that by not following these things, we can see what we've made it into. And we're going to have a choice next time. Like I said, it's going to just be codified in law. It's just going to be in law that you have to follow the Pandemic Awareness Manual. It's also going to be codified in law that you can't fire the people at the CDC who work with pandemics, that you can't get rid of the pandemic response team. It's just going to be codified in law. We had a wishy-washy system where we're like, some presidents have to protect you against viruses, others don't. It's optional, right? And this government chose optional. They said, don't do anything. It's nothing for 4 to 6 weeks. And now we're going to see what happens, right? So in the future, I don't think we're going to do it this way again. I think it's going to happen. Fox News is very concerned. Jay Rosen from New York University writes, I've been talking to Fox insiders the last few days, and there's a real concern inside the network that their early downplaying of the coronavirus actually exposes Fox News to potential legal action by viewers who maybe were misled. And Michael Bromowich writes, Fox is right to be concerned, very concerned. This could be a legal bloodbath. Discovery, that's not the television show, that's Discovery where you get the documents, the emails, the text messages, the memos, will undoubtedly show that its personnel were putting out falsely comforting information it knew to be false and misleading in order to sync up with White House messaging. We've played the video several times of President Trump saying, it's nothing, it will go to zero, it's a hoax, it's fake. So if internal documents, which we're going to get legally through Discovery, show that they put out falsely information that they knew to be false, they could be liable for any viewers who are misled. So we're going to find out. The evidence is going to be there. It's not going to fall off a bridge like CIA evidence or anything.
But surely, if then, for example, if you were to take misinformation, if there's proof, like surely that sets a precedence with a lot of things that a lot of news where anything's changed. You know, why is this specifically? I'm not. It does kind of seem like it
because the Discovery, the internal documents will show
I'm not a Trump
that
fan,
they knew.
It does seem like a bit of a. Oh, we need something. What can we get for Trump? Okay, he did this, and then so Fox had this news.
Sorry, man.
You know,
they hung themselves, as the emails and the documents will show, through their own actions, through their own opinions and their own beliefs. They created this situation. Like, this isn't like, is it a trap for them? Maybe because they're incompetent, right? If you're not competent, eventually you're going to come up against a situation where only competence can save you. And that was this. If you're competent, you got the manual off the shelf. I think we could do tests, even higher than 9 out of 10. I think maybe 10 out of 10 Americans would read the binder if you put them in a room with a binder and you told them that, this is how you could solve the problem. And they would just read the binder. And they didn't read the binder. And in this case with the Fox News issue here, it all comes down to this key phrase, you knew it to be false. One of my favorite movies is The Paper, right? And in the Paper, they're about to shut down the news. They're about to shut down the presses, right? Stop the presses. We're putting out false information. And they're having a debate back and forth. It's going to cost them money to stop the presses, right? It's not a good commercial move. It doesn't gain them any money to tell the story right. One of the newspaper editors says, just wait till tomorrow, we'll print a retraction. And what Michael Keaton says is that we never did this knowingly. We made mistakes before, but we never knowingly made a mistake. Right here, we could stop the presses. We could reprint the newspaper. We could recall the previous newspapers. Or we could knowingly ruin these kids' lives by saying they're guilty of a crime that we know they didn't commit. It's about the knowledge. Like, if they didn't know this stuff, they would be fine, right? They'd just be idiots.
Yeah, it's proving
But the problem is these documents, and people are stupid, right? I tell people all the time, emails, the evidence of the 21st century, text messages are just like email. Never write something that you don't want to be read, right? It's real hard practice. No one can do it properly, but never write something you don't want to be read. Well, they were writing all kinds of things internally, and I haven't read it yet. I'm going to read it when it comes out. But when we read it, when it comes out, people are going to be furious, right? They can try to lose the evidence. And that's, again, an admission of guilt. And also a crime in itself. Destroying evidence is a crime. But no, we're going to find out. We're going to find out if they knew and if they knowingly did this. And there's a difference. I mean, being wrong, being ignorant is actually a defense. But being intentionally misleading, intentionally wrong. And again, we haven't seen the evidence yet. We don't know. Maybe some other network did this too. We're going to find out. But it's not a good look. These are professional media watchers here. Jay Rosen teaches journalism and directs the Studio 20 program at New York University. He's been on TV several times. I think I've read books by him. Bromowich, same thing. Former Department of Justice attorney, U.S. attorney, SDNY, Associate Independent Counsel. He was on Iran-Contra, Independent Monitor. Like, this isn't just some, jag off on Twitter saying that Fox News should be worried about the potential that they misled people. These are serious people. This is serious discussion. There's going to be a very serious lawsuit someday. So, Bitcoin rose 7% on Monday, even as the risk-off mood returned to traditional markets. Well, that's good. Meanwhile, the cognitive dissonance required to call grocery store workers and delivery drivers essential, life-sustaining work, and also that they deserve to make $7.25 an hour and not get health care is fucking mind-boggling. And it really is. Like, if these guys are essential workers and they are, just like the doctors and the nurses who do pretty well, why are we paying them nothing? Why are we not giving them gloves and sanitary material? I think they just had a strike last night for Instacart. The Instacart workers are essentially professional shoppers who now have to go to the grocery store and expose themselves potentially to this disease. And we're not giving them hazard pay and we're not paying them more. The least among us. Like, we are all interconnected. So we could previously play these games and pretend we live in our mansions and so on and so forth. But we're all interconnected now. We're going to have to pay these people more. I can't believe that they're still working now. I can't imagine getting out of bed as a grocery worker making $7.25 an hour, going down to stock the shelves to keep this country alive and not being an essential worker, not getting hazard pay, not getting health care, not getting the ability to take a day off when you're sick. Our society is unequal. Our society was designed this way, and this virus is exposing that inequality. The virus is It's like water, right? Water finds a way. Water works through things. Water finds the quickest way. You have like something with a bunch of cracks in it. You pour water in it. You look at the other side. The water comes right out, exposes all the cracks. That's our society. And it was fun. We were all pretending. We were like, I just watch basketball. I'm a basketball person. Or I'm not into politics. I'm not a political person. And, I'm not into history, and I don't like knowledge. Thinking is hard. It's tough. We're going to have to keep working on it. Let's see. This guy's still talking. Let's see.
I think I may have to take off, sir, because of the fam is meeting for a house party.
Very cool.
Universal house party.
Very good. Anything you want to say in closing? People should stay inside, wear gloves. What you got?
I think I don't know. Everyone says different information. I think the WHO is still saying like don't bother wearing a mask, and I just think that's absurd. Because any filtration's better than nothing. And if one of their reasons for not wearing a mask is because people still take it off and touch their face, and that's a stupid reason, because that's like saying don't drive a car because some people drive it into people. Like if you drive a car right, you don't drive it into people. You wear the mask right, you don't get infected, you reduce infections. So wear a mask, make a mask. I don't know, use a bra if you're feeling inventive. I might make one myself until one of my friends sends me some from South Korea, because we don't get them in the UK. We have stiff upper lips, tea, and crumpets to avoid disease, and maybe a basement if you're lucky, if you're of the riches. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you very much, Tom, again for having me on the show, and I've really enjoyed myself as usual.
All right, thanks, Dan, for hanging out and playing devil's advocate, even though I don't think we need it anymore.
Also known as being a bellend.
Too many people are advocating for that damn devil. It seems like he's got everybody on their team. So
I just need I just want to try and see the differences, different shoes, different feet and stuff. But
we'll have to see. All right, thanks so much for joining us, Dan. We'll see you again next time.
Take care, dude. Ciao, ciao.
But the rest of us are doomed. We're doomed to read the news until the news ends. You have no choice. I'm going to try to play less videos. Maybe we'll head towards the end of this thing. I can't really tell the time because my damn recorder light broke. I don't know. I'm going to have to check the disc. Whenever Trump attacks the media, remember when he gave the game away to Leslie Saul and he told her why he does it. Trump says that he attacks the media to discredit you and demean you. So when you write negative stories about me, no one will believe you. Spoken like a true propagandist. Classic. You guys want to hear it? Let's see.
Camera, exactly.
Here we go. A little Leslie Stahl. Oh boy, it's loud. It's a little less loud. Groovy music.
Met with him in Trump Tower. And he really is the same off camera that he is on camera, exactly the same. And at one point he started to attack the press. And it's just me and my boss and him. He has a huge office. And he's attacking the press. And there were no cameras. There was nothing going on. And I said, that is getting tired. Why are you doing this? You're doing it over and over, and it's boring, and it's time to end that. You've won the nomination. And why do you keep hammering at this? And he said, you know why I do it? I do it to discredit you all and demean you all, so when you write negative stories about me, no one will believe you. He said that.
It's a classic.
Put that in your head.
That's a Goebbels, right? That's like, if you tell a lie big enough, people will believe it. Like, that's, it's classic Goebbels, classic propaganda. Not a good look, man. Not a good look. I know you guys just overlook everything, but I find that very hard to overlook when we're quoting Goebbels. We're getting into the classics of propaganda here. Yeah, if you want to go back through it, the Department of Health Services wound down their pandemic models before the coronavirus struck. A vital modeling program was sidelined amidst a bureaucratic battle in 2017. So they shut down their modeling and analysis of possible pandemics. And once again, we continue to blind ourselves, which really worked out well. Shout out to Eliza Orland's best friend, Cornelia Griggs, a doctor in New York City. You can see she's wearing an incredible amount of protective gear, even the full suit. Let's see, Twitter. and she's giving a shout out to her daughter. She hopes that her daughter will remember her and remember this protective gear if it works. So shout out to the doctors who are on the front line continuing to fight this thing, regardless of if they have gear or not. I agree with Eliza. He says her best friend is so incredibly brave, but she's not. She's scared for everyone and the babies and stay home and hopes that this lady can have some proper protective gear soon. Austria is making basic face masks compulsory in supermarket, so that they're going to demand that you wear a mask. This is, again, a preview of what's going to come to the United States as soon as we come to our senses and realize that face masks work. South Korea should be the measuring stick for the United States. They have 158 dead. Our leader says we're going to have 200,000 dead, and we should be happy about it. We quoted and talked about this a little earlier, that in the United States, masks are illegal in many cities, and some consider them a factor in the commission of crime. Resumption of in-use masks in America will take some time. It's going to need some changing of social norms. It's going to have to be okay to wear a mask in public. As Balaji says, and Kyle Tibbetts agrees, everyone is a citizen journalist now. Protecting democracy and preserving liberty is in no one's hands but your own. Circumvent the gatekeepers. Speak truth. Speak boldly and without fear. No one is coming to save you but you. So this is your chance to get involved. Watching this show, calling into this show is definitely a part of being involved. When we report stories here and people call in, we're all being citizen journalists. We're all sharing information about what's going on in our world. Shout out to Bauer, the hockey gear making company, which is now making protective medical face shields. They've posted their full manufacturing catalog online, hoping that other companies can start filling orders as well. So we are seeing slowly but surely corporations are changing over. How much faster would they have changed over if we forced them? We'll never know, because we just left that tool in the toolbox, didn't even bother using it. Run! Godzilla is attacking the city. Godzilla! Relax. He's only killed 4,000 people. The flu kills more than 25,000 people a year. So we should just do nothing about Godzilla. That's the argument. It's not a very good argument, guys. I don't really see it being very viable. It falls pretty softly in that meme. It's heartbreaking to have end-of-life discussions with family members. No part of me was prepared to convey that a family member can't say goodbye, that their loved one would have to be alone during their final moments. I cannot imagine how they feel and how painful it is. So one of the things that this virus takes from us is our normal practice of being with our loved ones during their final moments, holding their hands, comforting them. And family members cannot do that because they'd risk exposure to the virus. Even doctors might not even be able to spend time with these people. They die alone in small, isolated rooms. It's a sad ending. A sad but happy birthday to Eric Clapton, who turned 75 years old today. Rolling Stone listed him amongst the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. I was really fortunate. I got to see him last year in Las Vegas at a concert. It was really great. He also played on a lot of Beatles records and was friends with the Beatles. As a great artist in his own right. Trump phoned into Fox and Friends. He spoke about how happy the governors are, even if they complain in the media. So if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. I've got some oceanfront property right here in Nevada. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem is closed due to the coronavirus. The last time the church was closed was in 1349 during the Black Plague. So we are starting to see a lot of things lining up. Imagine how good a black woman has to be to get the job of asking the president questions. Just think about how much better she has to be than everyone around her. Then imagine having to put up with this racist and misogynic nonsense. Yamiche Alcindor, journalist for PBS.
You said repeatedly that you think that some of the equipment that governors are requesting, they don't actually need. You said New York might not need 30,000. You said it on Sean Hannity's Fox News. You said that
why don't you people act? Let me ask you.
You said
why
some
don't
states.
you act? Why don't you act in a little more positive? It's always trying to
My question to you
get you. And you know what? That's why nobody trusts the media anymore.
My
That's
question
why
to you is, how is that going to impact?
Excuse me, you didn't hear me. That's why you used to work for the Times and now you work for somebody else. Look, let me tell you something.
Personal attack.
Be nice. Don't
Mr.
be
President,
Be
my
nice as I
question is-
personally attack you.
Be nice. Go
My
ahead.
question is, how is that going to?
So again, we all remember high school. We all remember bullies. This is what a bully does. She's there doing her job, asking a serious question. He's responding her, telling her to be nice. He's downplaying her ability to ask the question. He's an embarrassing and despicable bully. I don't know how you guys could support that. I mean, it's really bad. If you want to go to a country that's got a strongman, why don't you check out Belarus? Belarus's strongman governor rejects coronavirus risks. He says the people are strong and they don't care. So they're not going to have any lockdowns in Belarus. So again, if you want to see what it's going to be like in a previously modern country to be hit by the coronavirus, keep an eye on Belarus. That'll be a preview of what's going to happen in South Africa and the rest of Africa. Shout out to this great song, The Wait, featuring Robbie Robertson and Ringo Starr and others. It was a great collaboration. If we lose 100 to 200,000 people in America, Trump's coronavirus will rank above World War I, the Vietnam War, and the Korean War. If it's actually more than 220,000 dead, it'll be more dead than all those wars combined. Winning. That a biomedical powerhouse like the U.S. should so thoroughly fail to create a very simple diagnostic test was quite literally unimaginable. As the article says, the United States may end up with the worst COVID-19 outbreak in the industrialized world. Worst in the industrialized world. As the president said, if only 100,000 Americans die, that would be a success. A month ago, he said the number would be 0. So 0. Bill Prouty writes, today Donald Trump accused nurses of stealing masks and running a black market. Not only is there no bottom, we have punched down into another universe. So once again, when you're supporting him, you're supporting someone who accuses doctors and nurses of stealing masks and starting a black market, probably because it's what he would do. It's dark. It's really dark. As he said, 0 cases, it's going to be awesome. Now, 200,000 dead. Still awesome. Said the governors have more than enough equipment. Heck of a job, Brownie. The Dow Jones Industrial Average opened flat, was around 1.5% up last time we saw it. I'm agreeing with everyone else. We're enforcing a hard ban on April Fool's jokes in general, including a ban on meta-ironic, dark April Fool's jokes. So jokes like, the entire country of Malta has died from coronavirus is not a funny April Fool's joke. Let's not have that. None of those jokes tomorrow. Comparing the cases in the United States, they're up more than 1,000% over the last 4 weeks, according to Balaji on Twitter. March 1st, we had 89 cases, 2 deaths, and 472 deaths. March 28th, we have 118,234 cases, 1,965 deaths, and we've tested 735,704 people. Continuing to grow. I agree with Jojo. He writes, shit, I'm starting to miss Vegas. And I live in Vegas. Vegas is very much closed. Check out John Oliver. He's been saying a lot of the same things we're saying, but he just says it in such a beautiful way. They only do one show a week, and they really write the heck out of it. So watch the John Oliver show. Usually you have to have HBO to watch this, but they're putting out the episodes for free on YouTube during this time of crisis. Sad news in Hungary. We talked about it, as Annie Applebaum is saying here. And there it is, the European Union's first dictatorship. None of these powers are needed to fight the virus, but they will help detract and deter opposition, especially when it becomes clear that the government has no better plan. The Hungarian parliament passed a bill that gives the prime minister unlimited power and declares a state of emergency with no time limit, rule by decree. Parliament is suspended. There's no elections. Spreading fake news and rumors, up to 5 years in prison. Leaving quarantine, up to 8 years in prison. Goodbye, Hungary. I got to go to Budapest a couple times. It was really nice. A painting by Vincent van Gogh was stolen in an overnight raid at a small Dutch museum that is closed because of the coronavirus. Looks like a combination of a perfect storm. A far too expensive painting was in a small museum on the outskirts of town, and the museum was, of course, closed for several days. The Vincent van Gogh painting is now missing. I shared some beautiful pictures of my trip to Hungary, of better times in Budapest. Check out the amazing bridges. This bridge is the model that the Brooklyn Bridge was later built on. Fantastic bridge. And this is the House of Parliament, where Hungary just gave up their democracy. Very sad to see. I put up a video of me and my friends in Hungary, and I guess I convinced everyone that we were there and not wearing masks. People are so willing to believe that I'm traveling that even when I haven't gone outside for a month, old videos still convince them. Look for me to take more advantage of this in the future, maybe even posting pictures of myself in multiple countries, and then how could he be in multiple places at once? It's almost as if the photos are from different days, right? Almost as if the photos are from different days. As it says on Twitter, the Mad Tour monomyth has spread so widely that I can post videos from 2019 and convince people that I must be in two places at once. Fun stuff. Oh, I think we made it. We made it to the end of the news. Gosh, it was only a day. Remember when you could do 2 days of news in one day? It wouldn't even be that hard. But doing 1 day of news today took us what seems like almost 3 hours. So we have been rocking and a-rolling all morning. Thanks to the 56 who are still watching us now. 42 of you who gave us thumbs up. Also, shout out. Oh, it looks like they've reduced, but for a while we had 9 thumbs down. Now we only have 4 thumbs down. So maybe people have softened their view on thumbs downing the show. Maybe the politics, like the whole Grinch thing. Remember when he grew a heart? The Grinch's heart expanded more than 12 times that day. And all the who's in Whoville, and all their, I can't make up Dr. Seuss words. He's so good. But yeah, all the who's in Whoville were better off because the Grinch, his heart expanded, and he returns all their presents, and he goes down there and has dinner with them. And the Grinch, he cuts the roast, and he gives everyone a piece. So maybe good old Montgomery Burns is going to turn everything around. He's going to start to realize the connections between people. We saw a little bit of it in the press conference yesterday. A friend of the president's, sorry to hear of this, certainly, was hospitalized with the coronavirus. President said that he called up expecting to talk to his friend and was told his friend was in a coma. So as sad as this is, a personal tragedy, no doubt, for the president to start to understand this, to start to understand the implications, maybe it's worth it. There's been all kinds of other cases. Certainly Boris Johnson, friend of the president, was stricken with this. Prince Charles, associated with the president. At least they've met, I'm sure. But yeah, maybe if it just gets into his orbit, Maybe that'll help. But there's going to be another press conference today. And it's going to say more stuff. So we'll have to see how that goes. Thanks to everybody for joining us in the chat and talking so much. I would open it for phone calls, but I think I'm starting to lose my voice. I talked for like 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm working on expanding, working on making that voice stronger, stretching it out every day here on the World Crypto Network. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, or whenever we stop reading the news here on the World Crypto Network. Give us a thumbs up and a share. It's a great way to spread the word about this show. You can also subscribe down below, hit the bell for notifications. Follow me on Twitter at MadBitcoins. Follow the World Crypto Network on Twitter at WorldCryptoNet. Thanks so much for joining us. Check out some of the other shows. We got the Bitcoin group, all kinds of great stuff in the archives too. So check that out. Until next time, bye-bye.